Location: Mizudafu Preschool. From shooting fire out of your eyeballs to glowing in the dark, every quirk has the possibility of making someone a dastardly no-good-oer, or a heroic, well, hero. Quirks have been around for many years, and while we still don't know everything about them, crime has been at an all-time high due to people being fed up with today's society. But worry not, young watcher. While the amount of villainy has risen, so have the good-hearted individuals who have stepped up to put an end to crime once and for all. Remember, kids, anyone has the capability of being a hero. And, maybe someday, you'll be one of the greats. Green eyes sparkled while staring at the TV screen, a sudden, warm feeling of pride building up in a young boy's chest as he watched one of the heroes from yesteryears throw a couple of villains in a jail cell. Izuku Midoriya was the boy's name, and while he didn't have his quirk quite yet, his every waking thought was filled with him being all grown up and being a hero. Stopping bad guys, saving people, maybe even working alongside the #1 pro hero, All Might himself. Most nights he stayed up well past his bedtime, eagerly sketching different designs for his hero costume or coming up with different hero names. And once he got his quirk, the sky would be the limb. Thunk. Izuku flinched, snapping out of his daydreams and shaking his head before grabbing the back of his head where he had felt something hit him. Oi, Deku. Stop daydreaming and help me out, will ya? I'm not going to do all the work and let you get all the credit, a young, brash voice shouted from behind him, using Izuku's signature nickname. What was once a negative nickname given to him by a couple of older boys was now an endearing nickname that only his closest friends could call him. Izuku turned with a smile, watching as his blonde friend huffed and dragged one of the school chairs towards a giant tower. This boy's name was Katsuki Bakugo, Izuku's best friend since, well, birth. Their mothers had been best friends since high school, so naturally the boys had spent time together practically since the moment they were born. Ever since then, they've had an unbreakable, inseparable bond. Why were they grabbing chairs, you may ask? Well, the school was having an assembly, so Izuku and Bakugo had volunteered to stack chairs for their teacher in order to get out of it. Sorry, Kakin. Izuku apologized, running over and grabbing another free chair before dragging it towards his own growing stack, missing the scene of the video of a green-skinned man tossing a car into a villain. His stack was 5 chairs high, while Bakugo's was triple that at 15. The blonde boy's stack was so tall, he needed to make a smaller stack to climb on in order to keep adding to the taller stack. With a grunt, Bakugo used all his strength to lift the chair up and add it to the stack, making it an impressive 16. Katsu, don't throw pencils at Aizu. It's not nice, a new voice scolded the blonde boy. Thank you, Sum. Izuku thanked, turning to the other room's occupant with a grin. Mei Hatsum, a young, pink-haired girl with a knack for technology and far smarter than most kids her age. She was the third musketeer in the friend group, the one who often talked the boys out of doing something stupid, and on occasion, talking them into doing something stupid. Her mother was also friends with Izuku's and Bakugo's mothers, so naturally, she spent a lot of time growing up with the boys as well. Hey, give me a break. It's how I show my love, Bakugo retorted, hopping down from the smaller stack to stare up at his impressive tower. Ah yeah, bet you can't beat this tower, Deku. I'm the chair stacking master. Bakugo gloated, letting his competitive nature shine as he always did. He jumped and pumped his fist into the air, imitating All Might's famous and signature pose. When he landed onto his feet with a thud, the force caused the tower to wobble, and several of the top chairs started to fall down, heading straight for Mei's head. The girl's eyes widened before closing in fear, too scared to move. Bakugo gasped and readied an attempt to launch himself forward to tackle her out of the way, but the chairs froze mere inches away from her head before he could. His eyes widened in shock, and soon, Mei's eyes opened as well to see why she hadn't been hit yet. Like her friend, her eyes also widened upon seeing the chairs floating, with some kind of green energy around them. The two turned to Izuku, watching as he had his hands held out, green energy similar to that of the chairs coating them. With a huff, he lowered the chairs onto the ground safely, the energy dying down around his hands, and chairs not even a second after. He breathed in and out, sweat forming on his brow. Deku, was that your quirk? Bakugo asked in awe, beyond happy that his friend's quirk had finally arrived. Are you okay, Aizu? Mei asked, moving to his side as he huffed and puffed, legs shaking, albeit only slightly. Why yeah, I'm okay some. Just out of breath, Izuku said, gasping a big breath of air to calm himself. He stared down at his shaking hands and smiled wide. I think it was Kaken, Izuku exclaimed, feeling over the moon with what he was getting ready to say. I think I have my quirk now. When preschool ended and Inko went to pick Izuku up, she was surprised to see some of the teachers holding a small celebration for her child. When she asked why, the teachers told her that Izuku had finally gotten his quirk. This was further cemented by her baby boy rushing out to her, crying tears of joy and talking a mile a minute out of pure excitement. She was happy and relieved to find this out, as she had been starting to get worried that her son might have been quirkless. Mind you, she wouldn't have been bothered or upset regardless if he had one or not. She was more worried for his health and safety. The quirkless were treated as lesser beings by many people, so to know that her son wouldn't go through any torment or bullying was a blessing. After talking with some of the teachers, Inko decided it would be best for Izuku to see a quirk doctor right away. So after pulling some strings and using some of her connections at the hospital she worked at, she was able to set up an appointment for later in the day. This is where we find our mother and son duo now, with Inko sitting in a pristine white room and waiting for the doctor to come back with the results, and her son. While Inko sat in her chair, Izuku was with the doctor performing several tests. Soon the door opened. Izuku rushed in to sit in the chair beside his mother. The doctor entered after with a clipboard in his hand. The man was middle-aged, short, and balding, with thick glasses and thicker eyebrows. Ms. Midoriya, here's little Midoriya, the doctor said before taking his seat. I'm sure you're curious as to what we've found, he asked, causing the two to nod. Well, we took an x-ray to double-check little Midoriya's quirk claim. Standard procedure, nothing to worry about. What we found is that he does only have one joint in his pinky toe, confirming that he does have a quirk. The second thing we've discovered is that little Midoriya's quirk is actually a mutated version of your own quirk, Ms. Midoriya. Mutated. It means that, while it's similar to your own quirk, it's different enough to be classified as an entirely different one. The doctor pulled out a metal pen. While we waited for the x-ray to finish, we performed several tests with your son. We now know little Midoriya has control over metal objects. Are you ready, little Midoriya? The doctor asked, causing Izuku to nod. Reaching a hand out, Izuku began to concentrate on the pen held before him. It took some time, but much to his mother's joy, the tips of his fingers began glowing green. The pen in the doctor's hand started to wiggle, and confident in the boy's power, the doctor let it go. The pen floated in the air and started flying towards Izuku at a slow pace. Okay, now try pushing it back to me. Following the order, Izuku concentrated more. This not only caused the pen to stop midair, but also begin flying back and into the doctor's hand. You see, little Midoriya has complete control over metal objects. With some training, I'm sure he'll not only be able to move larger objects made of metal, but he may also be able to magnetize other parts of his body, such as his feet or arms in case he's unable to use his hands at that moment in time, the doctor said. However, there is a downside to this quirk. If little Midoriya is ever in conflict with no metal around, he'll be in great danger. I'd recommend signing him up for some self-defense classes. With quirks like these, you need to be prepared for anything, so I'll look up some specialists and trainers who may be able to help him do so. I know pro heroes like Death Arms, Ingenium, and Gunhead teach self-defense classes every weekend. Now, I suspect you want to be a hero, correct? It's all he's ever dreamt about. Inko sighed as Izuku nodded eagerly. I want to be just like All Might and make people smile. Very well. May I suggest getting him some type of weapon or equipment to practice with? While his quirk may be quite useful, it'll hardly do him any good in hand-to-hand combat. Oh my, do you really think he'll need a weapon? Inko asked worriedly. Weapon, piece of equipment, anything that'll make up for what he lacks and balance him out. At the moment, he'll be a good support hero, but with the right tools and training, he may turn into a just as good a fighter. One hero I know of in particular is a great example, as he uses a capture weapon since his quirk doesn't affect villains with mutant-type quirks. Inko nodded and continued memorizing all of the information she was given. While she was wary of her baby using a weapon, It did make sense. The last thing she wanted was for her baby to get into a fight and not be prepared. I see. Thank you very much, Doctor. We'll discuss what Izuku wants to do once we get home. Excellent. While you do that, I'll look into those specialists and trainers I was talking about. I think Gunhead should be the first to talk to, as I've heard he teaches martial arts and self-defense. I will. Thank you, Doctor. 4 hours later, Midoriya residence. This is quite the list the doctor provided for you. A woman equal to Inko's age and height commented as she read through the list on the kitchen table. This woman was Mei's mother, Hana Hatsum. Hana had short pink hair that reached her neck, yellow eyes much like her daughter, pale skin, and a pair of goggles that also functioned as a pair of glasses that currently rested on her nose. Both she and her husband were brilliant inventors known for making equipment that had saved the lives of countless heroes and civilians. Hana and Mei had come over for their daily visit, as was their tradition ever since the two children had become friends. While she and Inko were talking in the kitchen, Izuku and Mei were watching a few American movies Hana's husband had brought back from his latest trip. I know. This page is for trainers. This one's for the heroes who teach self-defense. This one's for weapon experts. And that's barely scratching the surface. Inko sighed, placing the sheet she was holding on top on one of the 3 stacks of papers the doctor had provided. I can understand about being thorough, but this seems a bit excessive. That's the understatement of the decade, Hana mumbled under her breath. And you said the doctor mentioned Izuku should get some kind of equipment? Yes, but we haven't had the time to decide or discuss what that item should be. I don't want my son using an actual weapon. He could end up killing someone by accident. Well, maybe he doesn't need an actual weapon. There are plenty of items out there that could help him out. Maybe some kind of armor? Or a capture weapon. While their mothers continued discussing what to get Izuku, the child in question and his friend were busy with their own devices. They watched, captivated, as a man in red, white, and blue came falling from the sky. He landed on a bad guy, shield first, and smashed him through a truck's window. Then the hero kicked the truck and sent it smashing into another villain. The hero threw his shield, knocking another bad guy back before the shield bounced back to the hero. Raising the shield high to block a volley of bullets, he ran and jumped onto a truck that a villain was currently standing on. Snatching the gun from the bad guy's hand, the hero landed a solid punch to his opponent's stomach, sending him flying and crashing into a cement pillar. Following the hero up, 2 more heroes, a woman wearing red and a man with mechanical wings, flew into the scene and began to attack, kicking, punching, and sending the villains dressed in black flying through the air and smashing into their trucks. The woman in red then helped by floating the red, white, and blue hero into the air and through a glass window. Blocking more bullets, the hero smashed another villain into a metal desk before hiding behind a pillar of cement to protect himself from more bullets. He bounced the shield off of the floor and a wall, and it smacked into a bad guy and sent him flying out of the building through a window. A new villain rushed him after that, but the hero swept his leg and knocked him to the ground. The hero followed that up by grabbing the man's leg before smashing him into another cement pillar. That's so cool, Izuku cried out in excitement. I want a shield like him. I want a shield to be my equipment. Equipment? Mei questioned, confused. Uh-huh. The doctor said I should have some equipment since my quirk won't be good for fighting. I want a shield just like that guy. A shield may be the perfect thing for you, Izuku, Hana said as she and Inko walked towards the two. It's the perfect combination of offense and defense, and you won't seriously hurt anyone like your mother fears. My husband and I could make one for you, if you'd like. Oh, Hana, that's very generous, but we don't want to be of any trouble, and I'm sure a shield like that could be really expensive. It's no trouble at all, Inko. This is a hero item we're talking about. The government will have no problem at all funding it. But Izuku's not a hero yet. Details, Inko, details. He's not one yet. What the government won't know won't hurt them, Hana stated, causing Inko to sigh. She knew it was of no use to argue with Hana and her family. Once they set their mind to something, they got it done. Anyway, how are you guys enjoying the movies? The heroes are cool and all, but none of them are as cool as my hero, Mei informed her mother, leaning onto Izuku's shoulder with a big smile. Ever since the chair incident, May had taken to referring to Izuku as her hero. The greenhead in question blushed bright red. It didn't help that their parents cooed at the sight. "So cute," Hannah whispered, rapidly tapping the button on her phone to take pictures. After about 50 pictures, and with Inko trying to pry the phone out of her hand to make her stop, she decided that was enough for now. "Okay, come on, May, it's time to go." "Goodbye, my hero," she cooed before pecking Izuku's cheek and getting up from her seat. She sent a wink back at him, which made his whole head turn red. "Ugh, you do that now after I put my phone away?" Hannah groaned, causing Inko and May to laugh. Saturday, downtown Mizudafu. After thinking over her discussions with Izuku's doctor and Hannah, Inko decided to visit some of the places that the doctor had recommended. She and Izuku chose the gym Death Arms owned, Ingenium's track, and the Gunhead agency, which doubled as a martial arts dojo. While Inko was still wary of asking these pro heroes for help, the doctor had assured her this was in Izuku's best interest. Death Arms Gym was gray and colorless on the outside, with giant windows running alongside the front and sides of the building. A small, 3-foot by 3-foot makeshift sign with the words Death Arms Gym hung above the front doors. Once the mother and son duo entered the gym, they were met with the sight of heroes and civilians alike using different types of equipment, from treadmills to barbells. A boxing ring sat in the middle of the giant room, where two people with mutant-type quirks were currently going at it. Standing to the side of the ring coaching the fighters was the man they were looking for. "Come on, Wu. You have 4 other arms. Use them. Gary, you have literal eyes on the back of your head. How is he getting the better of you? You guys are FFFFFF. Not good at this." Death Arms deterred from his original statement upon seeing Inko and Izuku. "Take 5 guys. I'll be back," he ordered before walking towards the pair. "What can I do for you?" "Hello, I'm Inko Midoriya. I spoke with your assistant this morning regarding my son, Izuku." "Oh yeah, the metal kid. Dr. Imoto emailed me last night about him and said I should train him. Tell me, why should I?" Death Arms asked while crossing his arms. Whenever someone wanted to join his gym or be trained by him, the hero would often make them explain why he should bother. If the explanation was good enough, he'd accept them. If not, he declined. "Well, you see," Inko stated before feeling the child behind her start to vibrate where he stood. She sighed, knowing what was about to happen. "Your Death Arms, the punching hero," Izuku exclaimed, running out from behind his mother to stand before the pro. The lad was no longer able to contain his excitement. "In your first week of being a hero, you arrested 20 bad guys, stopped several bank robberies, and stopped a wall from crushing a mother and her children. I'm such a huge fan." The hero grunted, slightly amazed someone had remembered that. Crouching down to the child's height, Death Arms sized him up before poking him in the stomach to see what exactly he was dealing with. Izuku giggled before reaching up and poking the pro hero's nose. The pro narrowed his eyes, expression unreadable. He was impressed to say the least. Many people feared Death Arms over his appearance, attitude, and foul mouth. Children were especially scared of him. And yet here stood young Midoriya, who not only was a big fan of his, but didn't even seem the least bit scared or intimidated by him. Hell, the kid booped his nose, for Christ's sake. "I love this kid," he said suddenly, surprising Inko. "I'll train him to kick ass, butt, and take names. Wah, but I have a 5-page essay on why. He goes to school, right? Bring him in around 12 o'clock on Tuesday, and we'll get started. Bring him in around the same time every day until I say otherwise. I'll have my assistant email you my contact information, schedule, and the type of food he should be eating and the amount he should be eating. See you then, newbie," Death Arms said before walking back towards the ring. "Breaks over numbskulls, get back to work." Inko watched with wide eyes as the pro hero retreated back to the ring, amazed at how easy it had been to convince him to train Izuku. She could only wish the next 2 would be as easy. Ingenium's track, 1 hour later. Ingenium's track, which was 400 meters long and built from synthetic rubber, was located on the other side of the city near the forest. The pro hero Ingenium had built it here so those he trained could avoid all the smoke from the city and get some fresh air. As an added bonus, a lake was nearby, which allowed him to teach people to swim if they didn't know how to. As Inko and Izuku entered the area through the gates, They watched as Ingenium blew his whistle before several kids, all slightly older than Izuku, started their race. The pro must have seen them from the corner of his eye, as he turned to them with a smile. "Mrs. Midoriya, correct? It's a pleasure to meet you," Ingenium exclaimed, meeting them halfway instead of making them walk all the way to him. "Dr. Imoto emailed me last night regarding your son, Izuku, and I'm guessing this is the little guy in question." The hero smiled before crouching down to Izuku's height. "Hi there." Inko didn't bother to speak, as she knew what was about to happen. She kept quiet and allowed her son to work his magic. In 3, 2. You're Ingenium, the turbo hero. 2 weeks after you became a pro, you saved 150 people from a burning hotel. You even managed to calm down the kid who accidentally started the fire after he got his quirk. I've been a fan ever since. Wow, you certainly know your stuff," Ingenium said with pink-tinted cheeks. He remembered that day well and still kept in contact with the child in question. He was doing well and was getting ready to enter UA soon. "Tell me, why do you want to be a hero?" "Everyone has their reasons. What are yours?" "To save people, of course," Izuku exclaimed with a smile. "It's my dream to make people feel safe and protected, and to do it with a smile on my face, just like All Might," Izuku said while striking All Might's signature pose. Ingenium couldn't help but chuckle at the boy's enthusiasm. It was quite infectious. "That's a wonderful reason for wanting to be a hero. My little brother wants to be a hero for the same reason, although he wants to be more like me when he grows up," Ingenium chuckled while scratching his blushing cheek. He looked up at Inko. "I'd love to train him. Bring him here every Saturday and Sunday around 2, starting tomorrow if that works for you both. I'll email you the schedule and the type of shoes I'd like him to have." Inko nodded, and after she and Ingenium had conversed some more, she and Izuku went on their way while Ingenium went back to his students. She had a good feeling about their next stop. 30 minutes later, Gunhead Agency. "I'd like to adopt your son." Inko, not to brag, was used to hearing such a phrase coming from her friends and Izuku's teachers. But hearing it come from a pro hero was a whole different experience. The mother and son had arrived a few minutes ago and met with Gunhead's assistant, who went to fetch the hero from his office. Not even 2 minutes after meeting them, Izuku was already hanging off the man's arm like it was a monkey bar. Her son wasn't even able to list off facts about Gunhead or talk about the heroic acts he had done before the man fell in love with a simple smile and energetic hello from Izuku. "I'm afraid I must decline, but you could see him weekly if you agree to train him." "Good enough, you've got yourself a deal. Bring the little guy in at 3 every Friday, and I promise to train him to the best of my abilities," Gunhead stated before returning the child to his mother. "Would you mind waiting so I can write a 10-page essay on why you should let me adopt him?" The sad thing is that Inko genuinely couldn't tell if he was joking or not. Midoriya apartment, 5 p.m. "So, did he get to 10 pages? "Sadly, no. He was only able to get to 7 before we had to leave," Inko said, causing Hana to laugh. It was 5 in the evening, and Hana and Mei had come over to visit Izuku and Inko. While their children played in Izuku's room, the parents were discussing the places and heroes Inko and Izuku had visited. Izuku has training with Death Arms every day until stated otherwise, with Ingenium every weekend, and with Gunhead every Friday. Thankfully, with the times we can get back here for Izuku's and Mei's playdates, Inko said with a smile, unaware of Hana's frown. "Yeah, about that. Inko, we need to talk," Hana said, surprising Inko. She seemed sad and was being much more hesitant with her words, 2 things that completely unlike Hana. These playdates might have to go on a hiatus. A long hiatus. "Oh no, is something wrong? Did Izuku or I say something that upset you?" Inko questioned, worried she had done something to make her friend upset. "Oh no. You guys didn't do anything. It's just," Hana sighed. "Lee and I have been offered a job in America for some government agency. They want us to help invent items to keep the public and heroes safe from harm. They're offering us more money than we'll ever need, full control over what we build, and if we're good enough, they'll give us our own team of scientists. This could be big for us." "When will you be leaving? How long will you guys be gone?" Inko asked, trying to process all of this. She was sad, of course, but she was more worried for how Izuku would react. "We're leaving Monday, and we don't know. Could be months. but it's looking more like years. I told Mitsuki all of this while you guys were out running around. We were hoping the kids could come over here tomorrow and have one last day together. Of course, I'll run to the store tonight to pick up snacks for tomorrow. We need to try and make tomorrow as amazing as ever for them. I just hope the kids will be okay. The kids were, in fact, not going to be okay. 3 weeks later, Gunhead flinched at the loud thump that came from the training mats. He watched as a boy with brown hair and gray skin crumpled to the ground, unable to move as he tried to catch his breath. One of Gunhead's medical personnel came up from the side and onto the mats to pick the boy up before taking him away to make sure he didn't have any injuries or a concussion. This left Gunhead's newest, favorite student, Izuku Midoriya, alone on the mats. The young boy looked a bit agitated upon watching his opponent being removed from the area. Every day, Gunhead would have the kids pair up for mock fights in order for him to evaluate their forms and fighting styles. The fights were supposed to be tame and ended when one of the students either surrendered or began to cry. Gunhead always had candy on standby in order to comfort them. Overall, he was proud of his students, and thanks to the efforts of Death Arms and Ingenium, Izuku was at the top out of everyone, although he had noticed the boy had been a bit more extreme over the last few sessions. For example, he had started going in for the kill during these past few spars instead of practicing and training like Gunhead had wanted. It was easy to see the greenhead was angry, and from what Inko had told him the first day Izuku missed class, the pro hero could see why. Losing a friend, either from death or moving away, wasn't an experience Gunhead was new to, especially in his profession. Midoriya and Tanaka partner up. Ito, you go and rest, Gunhead ordered, causing the three to nod. Ito, the gray-skinned boy, started walking towards the infirmary. Tanaka was a boy with brown hair and spikes sticking out of his body, much like a porcupine. He seemed nervous but nodded nonetheless before getting on the training mat with Izuku and getting into a fighting stance. Ready? Begin. Tanaka made the first move, rushing towards Izuku to close the distance. He started out with 3 quick jabs, 2 aimed for the stomach, and the third for his face. Izuku dodged to the left then, right before ducking under the third. Growling, Tanaka raised his foot, sending a kick flying towards the side of Izuku's head. Izuku caught it before swiping at Tanaka's other leg and making the child fall flat on his back. Flipping him onto his stomach, Izuku dug his knee into his opponent's back while being careful to avoid all the spikes. Grabbing onto one of Tanaka's arms, Izuku pulled the arm and leg back, not giving him an opportunity to escape. After a minute of struggling, Tanaka sighed before using his free hand to slap the mat, officially declaring his submission. Kid's got some nice reaction time. I'll give him that. A voice spoke from behind Gunhead, causing the man to chuckle under his mask. That he does. He's probably the best student I've ever had, he said before getting punched in the arm. Ow. I'm kidding, Sugiyama. Sort of. You take that back right now, old man. There's no one that could replace me, Rumi Sugiyama growled while standing beside the pro. Rumi was a teenage girl with light brown skin, white hair, and 2 tall rabbit ears on the top of her head. Currently, she was a UA hero student of Class 1A. Whatever you say. So, what brings my second favorite student ever here? He asked, causing her to gasp. Second, you dropped after punching me. Not only did you hurt me physically, but you hurt my feelings too, he said, faking a quiet sob to further his point. The girl next to him merely rolled her eyes. So what can I do for you? I assume this isn't a mere visit. Doing my internship, and I'm required by the hero I'm trying to work with to get a letter of recommendation from someone I've interned with. Apparently, I'm too extreme and hot-tempered for them to trust without someone else's say-so. Can you believe that crap? Haha, yeah. Totally crazy. Gunhead trailed off, trying not to shiver at the memory from when she had interned under him. He still had nightmares about that villain with 3 ribs poking out of their chest. You're lying, she accused Gunhead with a glare. Way odd. Of course not. He began, but jumped back as soon as she took a step towards him. Okay, I lied. You terrify me. What? I only took a step towards you. And taking 1 step is all it took for you to put that rhino villain into a year-long coma, he exclaimed, causing her to huff and roll her eyes. Face it, Rumi, you're scary. Hey, I can be just as fluffy, lovable, and all that other bullshit like All Might and whoever else. Oh yeah? Prove it, and the recommendation is yours. Gunhead. No other kid wants to be my training partner. I think I scared them off, Izuku said as he made his way towards the pair. He was completely caught off guard when the rabbit girl picked him up. Listen, kid, are you scared of me? Well, you're a stranger who just picked me up for no reason, so yeah, a little. Izuku nodded. How about a deal? I take you out on a date in, like, 16 years and you say I'm not scary. Deal? She asked, causing Izuku's eyes to widen in surprise. The kid nodded, much to her relief. Deal. You're not scary at all. Great. Now run along and do whatever kids do, she ordered while placing Izuku down before turning to face Gunhead. See? Told you I'd prove I wasn't scary. That's not what I meant, and you know it. Plus, that was creepy on several different levels. True, but you never said how I needed to prove myself or that I couldn't bribe someone to say I wasn't scary. Classic loophole. Damn, you're right. But just you wait. You're gonna regret that deal you just made in 16 years when he's Japan's most eligible bachelor. That kid's going places, Gunhead warned. Yeah, I highly doubt it. He's a kid. He'll forget the deal in, like, a month. If only she knew how wrong she was. As the sun fell and the moon rose, some businesses were beginning to close for the night as others started booming with the night crowd. Downtown Mizudafu housed a unique bar that no ordinary individual could find, much less simply walk into. This bar, appropriately titled No Name, was a bar designed for pro heroes by pro heroes. It was seen as a beacon of safety and peace for the pros who needed to escape from the frenzied media or perhaps unwind after a long and stressful day of stopping crime. At a table in the corner of the room sat 3 pro heroes, Death Arms, Gunhead, and the Red Rammer, Takeo Kendo. Takeo had been down in the dumps lately, so Gunhead and Death Arms thought a night out would cheer him up. I just don't know what to do. I feel so helpless, Takeo sighed. Oh, you know you can get a donor for that, right? Gunhead asked, causing Takeo to splutter and Death Arms to sigh. What the fuck do you think we're here to cheer him up about? Death Arms asked. Is he not infertile? No, you idiot, the two shouted simultaneously. He's upset because his kid is upset, so we're here to cheer him up, Death Arms explained to his drunk friend. Oh fuck yeah, Gary is the infertile one. Ha, stupid Gary, Gunhead giggled before taking a long sip out of his already empty glass. How much has he had to drink tonight? Takeo whispered to Death Arms. He's only on his 3rd mimosa. I love the guy, but he's a total lightweight, Death Arms whispered back. So, what SSS Lilith Suka sad about now? Gunhead said, his words starting to slur from the alcohol. Guess I'll have to tell you again since you've forgotten the other 10 times that I've told you, Takeo muttered, annoyed. A few of her friends have moved away to places like Europe and America, and they're not coming back anytime soon. She feels abandoned and thinks she won't be able to make any new friends. I see, oh. Fucking, we know someone like that, Gunhead exclaimed giddily. You do? Oh yeah, I forgot. The new kid we're training had the exact same problem a few weeks ago. Name's Izuku Midoriya. Slipped my mind, kid's totally forgettable. Death Arms explained. He's lying. We both want to adopt him and are currently competing for it. He doesn't want to admit it because he's embarrassed, Gunhead said, causing Death Arms to growl in annoyance. You weren't supposed to tell him. And you're not supposed to lie. We're heroes. Heroes don't lie. Can you two shut up? People are trying to relax after a long and hard day, a hero sitting at the bar shouted at them. His costume was a red and white, skin-tight suit, and his cape was pure white with a red circle in the middle. He currently had his cowl down, revealing pale skin and shoulder-length brown hair. Fucking Gary, Gunhead growled under his breath before standing up, taking off his vest, and tossing it into Death Arms' face. What are you gonna do, Gary? You don't want none of this, old man. Just sit back down, Gary ordered before feeling 2 glasses of alcohol splashing against his back. Surprised, he turned and watched as Gunhead carelessly dropped 2 glasses onto the ground, breaking them. What do you want to do, huh? What do you want to do? What makes you the brauthority, brah? Should we stop them? Takeo asked Death Arms. Nah, he'll be fine, Death Arms said, watching as Gunhead charged Gary and tackled him over the bar. So about Itsuka, we could have her and Izuku meet up. Maybe they'll form a friendship or something. God knows they both really need a friend right now. And maybe in the future, I'll officiate their wedding. Gunhead shouted while putting Gary in a headlock. I mean, I guess we can try? How's tomorrow sound? I'll call Izuku's mother and tell her about the plan. We'll set something up, Death Arms promised as the two watched Gary try climbing back over the bar, only for Gunhead to smash a giant glass vase over the man's head. Gary's head smacked into the bar before the hero fell to the ground unconscious. Fuck you, Gary. You infertile piece of shit. Why does he hate Gary so much? I have no idea. The next day, the park. The plan was simple. Inko, Takeo, Gunhead, and Death Arms would take Izuku and Itsuka to the park to let them play together. If they were lucky, the duo would talk and discover the many things they had in common before forming a friendship. It was Inko's idea, as Death Arms' idea involved having the two partner up and fight at his gym, while Gunhead's idea involved a lot of SWAT vans, a banana clock, and the pool at UA. Her idea was the safest of the three and the least illegal. The park is where the two children in question currently were, walking alongside one another further away from the adults. Out of the corner of their eyes, they took in the appearance of the other. Hair as orange as fire and as green as the forest, eyes as blue as the ocean and as green as emeralds. Things were rather awkward, as neither of them knew what to talk about. So, what's your quirk? Izuku asked, curious. Ever since seeing her, he had attempted to figure it out, but had no such luck. It wasn't a mutant quirk, he could tell that much. It's called Big Fist, a transformation quirk that lets me, well. Itsuka trailed off before raising her fists and letting them grow a few sizes. She figured showing would be better than telling, as many people weren't impressed upon hearing what her quirk could do. That's so cool. You could beat villains so much faster than others, and could rescue more civilians with it. Izuku exclaimed, surprising her. Not many people got excited over hearing or seeing her quirk, so to have him fanboying over it was a nice change. Mine lets me control metal. When I grow up, I want to have a shield be my support item. That's awesome, Itsuka said, surprised that was his quirk. From how green his hair and eyes were, she would have guessed it had something to do with nature, like controlling trees. Who's your favorite hero? All Might. And yours? My dad is. He's the Red Rammer. He is? That's so cool. I remember first hearing about him. He made his first debut when a bus full of kids. Itsuka watched and listened, stunned, as Midoriya went into a full ramble about her father, from his achievements, fighting style, and the number of civilians he'd saved over the years. It felt really nice having someone talk about how much he loved her father, as he wasn't one of the more popular heroes out in the field. It ended up taking over a full hour for Midoriya to finish talking about everything her father had done during his hero career, and in time the duo shifted to laying in the grass, staring up at the clouds. Wow, you sure know your stuff. You're such a fanboy. Kendo giggled, amazed at everything the boy knew about her father. Yeah, my friend Kaken says that all the time. I feel you two would really like each other. Maybe we can set up another playdate. Izuku exclaimed, pumping his fist excitedly into the air before letting it fall back down to the ground, accidentally crushing a few flowers in the process. Who's Kaken? He's my best friend. We've been friends our whole lives, and he's always there for me. He can be a bit loud at times, but that's just part of his charm, Izuku said, causing Kendo to let in understanding. Excuse me, a timid voice said from the side. The two turned to see a girl with piercing green eyes and long green vines instead of regular hair. She wore a pure white sundress and matching sun hat, and in her hands was a basket of flowers. Why, you're crushing the flowers. See, could you please move your arm? What? Oh, Izuku exclaimed, quickly moving his arm to see the crushed flowers. Upon closer inspection, he noticed the flowers he had crushed were the same ones in her basket. Sorry about that. Are you picking flowers? Not exactly, the mystery girl said before kneeling onto the grass. Her vine-like hair started to move, digging into the earth before pulling the crushed plants out, while other vines started planting the flowers and patting dirt down around them. So cool, Izuku whispered in awe, with Kendo nodding in agreement. So your hair is completely made out of vines that you can control. Can you shorten them? Grow them? Can you do it at will? Or do you need sunlight and water to do it? Izuku asked with sparkles in his eyes, surprising the new girl and making her flinch with his enthusiasm. Midoriya, you're scaring her, Kendo warned before enlarging her hand and using her index finger and thumb to grab him by the shirt and drag him back. Don't you think we should know her name first, before you start barraging her with questions? Oh, right. Sorry about that. Izuku chuckled nervously as Kendo let him go. I'm Izuku Midoriya. This is Itsuka Kendo, Izuku said while introducing himself and Kendo. What's your name? Ibara Shiozaki. It's a pleasure to meet you, Shiozaki said while bowing her head in greeting. As for your questions, yes, I can shorten and grow my hair. If my hair is cut, it can grow back naturally with water and sunlight. That's so cool. I have so many more questions. Oh, but why are you planting flowers in the park? Izuku asked while tilting his head to the side. It's a tradition my mother started when she was younger. Every time church would let out, she would come here and plant flowers. I'm continuing her tradition, Shiozaki said, expecting them to laugh like the other children did. Oh, that's so sweet, Kendo said, causing Shiozaki to do a double take. It is. You don't find it silly. I think it's cool that you want to continue your mom's tradition, Izuku said with a big smile. Could we help? Please, he asked, with Kendo eagerly nodding in agreement. Shiozaki hesitated, but upon seeing their smiles and the honest looks they had in their eyes, she calmed down and felt like she could trust them. She smiled to herself and nodded. On this day, 3 beautiful friendships were formed. 11 years later, Aldera Junior High. As the teachers started to lecture students about the importance of planning for their futures, Izuku scribbled away at his notebook and was finishing up the sketch of MT Lady that he had started this morning while she was fighting a villain with a gigantification quirk. He personally didn't see the point in listening to the lecture. It was the same one given year after year, teacher after teacher. Besides, he, Kaken, Itsuka, and Ibara had already planned for their futures when they were younger. The next step after middle school would be to go to UA, and the overall endgame was to become a pro hero. Izuku nodded to himself upon seeing the now completed MT Lady sketch, before turning a few pages to work on another. The page he had stopped on made him pause for a second, before he cracked a smile. Littering 2 pages were sketches of his 3 friends in various poses with different expressions. For example, one was of Itsuka hanging upside down from a tree branch. One was of Ibara nursing a baby bird back to health, and one was of Kaken flipping him off. While that sketch itself didn't bring him much joy, the memory of showing it to Mitsuki and her explosive freakout was one he would cherish forever. It still amazed him how much has happened ever since he was a kid. While he was still saddened to this day over May moving away to America, a lot of good has happened to him. Meeting and being trained by pros like Death Arms, Gunhead, and Ingenium, befriending Itsuka, Ibara, Rumi, and lastly, how much he has improved not only his body and mind, but his quirk as well. Oi, nerd! Bakugo shouted before kicking his desk, snapping Izuku out of his thoughts. Stop daydreaming, and let's go, the bell rang. Noticing that the classroom was emptying out since the school day had just officially ended, Izuku nodded before getting up and grabbing his bag. The duo exited the class and walked out the front doors of the school, the bright sun nearly blinding them after being locked inside for so long. Are you still coming over tonight? Depends. Is Auntie cooking, or are you going to try to assassinate me again? Bakugo asked, causing Izuku to roll his eyes. My cooking isn't that bad, Kaken, he tried to argue, and the raised eyebrow he got back in return made him sigh in defeat. She's cooking. Thank fuck. Yeah, I'll be over. Just gotta run to the store and pick some shit up. You coming with me? After what happened last time? No thanks. I'd rather just head home, Izuku replied, shivering at the memory of the last time they went to the store together. He still hoped that the poor old woman was doing all right. PFTT, if you're thinking of that old woman, then she deserved what happened. She was like 100 years old and eats fucking mush. There was no reason she needed that many peppers. I can see your lips moving, but all I can hear is, I'm a little bitch who attacks old people, Izuku joked, before jumping to the side to avoid the incoming punch. Too slow. We'll see about that later tonight, fucker. You'll be trapped with me in your house all night, and your little girlfriends won't be there to save you." Bakugo shouted as he crossed the street, causing Izuku to stutter out a response as his cheeks reddened. "Huh, you stuttered, which means I won this round. Fuck you," Bakugo shouted while walking further away, causing the green-haired teen to sigh. "Asshole," Izuku whispered to himself as he continued his walk home. Sadly, he heard this morning that his usual route was undergoing construction, which meant he had to take a completely new route. The teen couldn't help it as a feeling of unease crept upon him while walking through an old tunnel. The mixture of it becoming darker the further he went inside, the countless graffiti that plagued the walls, and the scratches and cracks from people who used their quirks illegally here for fun made his walking speed increase ever so slightly. He felt as if he was being watched, making his hair stand on end. "You'll make a perfect skin suit for me to hide in, kid," a rough and gritty voice spoke from behind. Freezing, he whipped around and watched, horrified, as green sludge began oozing its way up from the sewer. It twisted and turned, its height nearing the ceiling of the tunnel. Yellow eyes filled with malice stared down at him, a manic grin forming and showing its jagged and broken teeth. "A villain," Izuku thought to himself, his body moving before he could think. He spun around and ran away as quickly as he could, knowing the villain had a type advantage over him. He'd seen plenty of videos of heroes fighting people with similar quirks, and knew that fire, ice, and wind-type elemental quirks were the best at combating them. No matter how fast he ran, he could feel something wrapping around his legs, causing him to trip and fall down onto the ground. He tried clawing at the ground, but it didn't help as he was pulled backwards before landing in the sludge mass. "This'll only take a second," the villain cackled, cold and taunting. Izuku could feel his mouth ripped open before sludge began piling inside him. The teen struggled, trying to grab fistfuls and throwing it away, but it didn't help. With every second passing, he found it more and more difficult to breathe as he felt himself slowly losing consciousness. As he died, all Izuku could think about were his friends and family that he'd never see again, or how he wouldn't be able to keep any of his promises. He'd never see his mother, or Kaken, Itsuka, Ibarame. The manhole cover behind them suddenly flew into the air and clanged against the ground. Eyes widening, the slime villain stopped his killing of Izuku and turned around, fear replacing the malice his eyes once held. "Have no fear, for you are safe," All Might announced, right foot slamming into the concrete below. "Now that I am here." The sludge villain panicked as it formed several hands, each shooting towards the hero at a great speed. All Might ducked under each attack with ease before he rushed at the villain, foot stomping his into the ground yet again. All Might raised his fist as wind surrounded him. "Texas Smash," he shouted, punching his fist forward and whipping up wind, sending a cyclone of air towards the villain at an incredible speed. The slime villain was literally blown away from Izuku, its liquid body scattered throughout the tunnel like paint. Izuku no longer felt himself in his sludge villain as he fell to the ground. Opening his eyes, the last thing he saw was All Might in his Texas Smash pose before he finally fell to the ground, unconscious. It could have been seconds before he came to, or minutes, or maybe even hours, he didn't know. All he knew was that someone was gently smacking his cheek in order to get him awake. Opening his eyes, he nearly had a stroke when the first thing he saw was All Might's smiling face beaming down at him. "Glad to see you're finally awake. I thought I lost you there." He smiled. A scream escaped Izuku as he crawled back away from the #1 pro hero, countless questions and thoughts running through his mind as the #1 hero All Might stared at him with his famous, golden smile. What had happened to the villain? Were they safe? Why in the fuck was All Might standing here before him? "Don't worry, I have apprehended the villain." All Might spoke as if he just read Izuku's mind, and held up 2 plastic bottles to show that yes, he had indeed captured the sludge villain. "Sorry about that. I didn't mean to get you caught up in my justicing. Usually I pay more attention to keeping bystanders safe, but it turns out this city's sewer system is pretty difficult to navigate." He laughed loudly. When he saw Izuku just stare at him, he continued, "As an apology, I gave you an autograph and placed it on the back pages of that journal you had with it. I apologize for not asking first, but you were unconscious when I did so." All Might was apologizing to him. Wait until he told Kakin. Wait, autograph. Grabbing onto his journal and opening it up to the last pages, he screamed again when he saw that. Yes, All Might had used 2 pages to give him one giant autograph. Izuku felt that he could now die happily. Thank you. Thank you so much. Izuku began bowing like his life depended on it, going on and on about how it would be passed down to generation and generation as an heirloom. All Might just gave a thumbs up. Glad to make your dreams come true. Now if you'll excuse me, I gotta get this villain to the police as soon as possible and then continue my route. Evil never stops, and neither do I. He laughed before he started doing some stretches to prepare himself for takeoff. He had to go? No. Izuku had so many personal and professional questions to ask. He couldn't just go, not now. Izuku watched his squat and stretch and made up his mind before All Might could jump and get away. He'd hitch a ride. This has to be a dream. Kid. Or maybe I died and I'm in some kind of twisted hell. Kid. Or you're a clone. Or an imposter. Kid. No, that's impossible. No one could recreate a Texas smash that powerful, but the clone theory might be plausible. Bonk. Ow. Izuku shouted after getting bopped on top of the head. He rubbed the area and stared up at the skeletal man. After latching onto All Might and flying into the air, the hero had landed on top of a building to let Izuku off. Within seconds of doing so, the hero's body started smoking and All Might poofed into, well, not All Might. Sorry, young man, but I wasn't able to get a word in edgewise with all your muttering, he apologized. Before you start muttering and throwing out theories again, rest assured when I say that I am All Might. But All Might is 7 feet 3 inches with giant muscles. And you're well. Izuku trailed off, gesturing to the man's body. The man chuckled before sitting on the ground across from him. That is my muscled form. You're currently looking at the real me, Toshinori Yagi. And the reason why I look like this is simple, he said with a frown, before lifting up his shirt to reveal a large and nasty scar, one that made Izuku cringe. Pretty gross, right? I got this in a fight 5 years ago. My respiratory system was basically destroyed, and I lost my whole stomach. It can't be fixed, and it's a miracle I'm still alive, he explained. Right now, I can only do hero work for about 3 hours a day, and this is what I look like the rest of the time. 5 years ago, if I remember correctly, your biggest fight that year was against Toxic Chainsaw. But judging by that injury, it couldn't have been him. So it was someone else, a villain that I don't even know about. You know your stuff, and you're rather observant, aren't you? All Might chuckled. You're correct. It was done by a different villain, one the world hasn't heard of thanks to me. I've tried my best to keep their existence under wraps. All Might went on to explain, even when scared, why he would always wear a smile when in battle. He was the symbol of peace, a beacon of light in this crazy and scary world. He needed the people to know that he was strong, and they were safe with him around. It was a difficult job, but what wasn't difficult about being a pro? The stress and fear knowing that every day might be your last, of knowing that with one small slip-up the lives of many could be lost. People attacking and criticizing you for damages caused to the city and to stores, homes, and livelihoods being destroyed by you. It didn't matter how many people you saved or how many villains were put behind bars because of you. To some you would always be an uncontrollable force, a mere villain. It was no wonder why you'd always hear in the news how a hero died via suicide. This gave Izuku a lot to think about, and in a way, it made him better prepared on what he would eventually have to deal with. He knew being a pro was tough, but hearing just how tough it was coming from the #1 hero himself put a lot of things into perspective. Now if you'll excuse me, I must be on my way. This sludge villain won't take himself to jail, All Might said as he stood up. Wait, before I go there's something I need to ask. Izuku readied himself, finding himself reconsidering his question at All Might's confused stare. It's just, can I be a hero just like you? I mean, my friends and mother have always said I could ever since I received my quirk, but you're my personal hero, you know? It would mean a lot coming from you. Izuku explained, cheeks reddening from embarrassment. If I had a nickel, All Might chuckled under his breath. Okay, young Midoriya, show me what you've got. What's your quirk? I call it magnetism. I can control metal and make myself into a magnet, if need be, Izuku explained, before looking around the roof for items to show off his power. He lucked out, as there were several paint cans and metal pipes up there with them. Fingertips glowing green, the pipes and cans rattled until they began floating towards Izuku. They spun around him in a circle numerous times, before he forced the pipes into the roof and sat the cans on top. The pipes were implanted just enough to make them stay up, and just enough to where anyone could easily pull them out. At the moment, I can lift 1 ton and can only control ferrous metals. I'm also close to being able to crush and rip apart metal, and I'm working on increasing how much I can lift. Unfortunately, I can't control non-ferrous metals at the moment, but I've been working on it, he exclaimed, causing the pro to nod as he followed along. Controlling metal does have some major advantages, especially in a city such as a construction area. And, of course, if the villain you're facing is made of metal, you're almost guaranteed to win the fight, All Might muttered to himself in thought. Of course, your quirk wouldn't be the best for those moments of hand-to-hand in an environment where there is no metal. How do you plan to compensate? A support item, sir. When I was growing up, I was really into a movie franchise, and one of the heroes in it had a shield, so I was hoping to have one like his. It's kind of embarrassing, isn't it? Not at all, my boy. Many people base an aspect of their hero costume, equipment, or name off of someone they look up to, no matter if they're real or made up. Personally, I think a sword would be better, or perhaps having a sword and shield, but I can see having a shield would work wonders for someone with a quirk such as yours. All Might gave his blinding smile with a thumbs up. Keep on working on that quirk of yours, and I'm sure you'll make for a fantastic hero one day. Izuku felt a massive weight lift off of his shoulders, as he found himself finally able to breathe after so long. He couldn't help but smile. Thank you, All Might. You don't know how much that means. Anytime, young Midoriya. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to take this guy to the local station. Would you mind waiting here for a few minutes after I leave? It'd be quite odd for us to leave at the same time, All Might said, causing Izuku to nod. All Might left after that, and after about 10 minutes Izuku did as well. With his head held high, he knew nothing could ruin his day. 15 minutes later. As Izuku walked down the street, 2 police cars drove past him. A bunch of people, heroes included, were gathering at the end of the street. The cop cars pulled up, and some officers flew out to join the crowd. Curious, Izuku walked over and pushed his way through the crowd to see what was going on. He felt his breath catch in his throat as he saw the sludge villain once again, surrounded by flames and broken structures. Multiple heroes were on the scene. Some were putting out the fires or rescuing civilians, while others were attempting to fight said villain. People were murmuring all around him, talking about how scary this was or how bad they felt for the hostage. Wait, hostage? A scream came from the slime villain's body, as did multiple explosions, which only caused more fires to form around the scene. Let me go, the hostage screamed, which made Izuku feel sick to his stomach. He knew that voice, he knew that blonde hair that was sticking out of the green slime, and he knew that quirk. It was Kaken. He was the hostage, and he was going to die unless someone was going to do something. Death Arms, MT Lady, Kamui Woods, and Backdraft are on the scene. Death Arms' fists won't do a thing. MT Lady can't fit. Backdraft is taking care of the fires, and Kamui Wood is busy rescuing civilians. Izuku thought to himself, hands clenching at his side. None of the heroes here could really do anything, and by the time a hero who could actually do something got here, Kaken would be. Before Izuku knew what was happening, civilians and heroes alike were screaming for him to get back as he rushed through the flames towards the slime villain. His stomach dropped, and he swallowed thickly, a wave of nausea and fear building up as he met the villain's eyes. But he continued running forward, determined to save his brother. He began looking around to see if there was anything that could help him out. His eyes landed on a rumbling fire hydrant that had been damaged in the fight, ready to burst. Green energy surged around his fingertips as he controlled the hydrant, bending, twisting, and eventually aiming it at the villain. He ripped the top off, causing a torrent of high-powered water shooting at the villain. As Bakugo was drenched with water, it washed away some of the slime. Izuku ran ahead until he got to his friend and grabbed onto him. Pulling with all of his might, he was able to pull Bakugo free, sending the two falling to the ground. "What are you doing, you fucking idiot? I'm so fucking telling Auntie." Bakugo screamed at his friend as they got up. "You can thank me later," Izuku yelled, fingertips glowing green once again as a nearby dumpster glowed. Swiping his hands to the left, the dumpster rolled and slammed into the villain, cutting the upper half and causing it to fall into the dumpster. Using the villain's entrapment to their opportunity, the two teens run away and into the heroes. Death Arms, surprised and relieved, grabbed onto them before forcing them behind his body. The villain roared in anger as he slithered his way out of the dumpster, his two halves meshing and combining together once more. Rage filled his eyes upon seeing the green-haired kid from before, and he screamed while forming several hands of sludge. He shot them towards the crowd, murder being his one and only intent. Death Arms readied himself, intending to protect the civilians and his son no matter the cost. He felt a rush of air pass him, and all were shocked as All Might stood before them, having taken every sludge hand. "Detroit Smash," he shouted, fist connecting with the villain's body. The sludge villain's body was split apart by the force and the wind that followed. The force behind the punch formed a tornado that penetrated the sky, causing the clouds to spin. The other heroes formed a shield in front of civilians to protect them. As rain began to fall from the sky, All Might stood tall, the villain no more. Izuku and Bakugo stared up at their hero in awe, before feeling themselves hoisted up by the collar of their jackets. "Why am I not surprised that it was you of all people to go running in like that?" a voice shouted, which made Izuku freeze in fear. Turning his head, he gave a weak chuckle and wave. "Hi, Death Arms. You don't come and visit me in weeks, and this is the greeting I get. You nearly getting yourself killed," Death Arms shouted, shaking Izuku violently by his collar. "I am sorry. I've been really busy with school." "Oh, you're too busy to visit, but not too busy to get yourself killed." "I didn't dash. I'm so having a word for your mother about this." Throughout this interaction, Bakugo was snickering to himself until he too was getting shook by the hero. Thus started the endless cycle of each laughing at one another as the other got shook violently. 1 hour later, Izuku rubbed the bruise on his shoulder as he walked him, dreading to go since he knew what was waiting for him, a disappointed-filled lecture and crying. Death Arms had let Bakugo go but kept Izuku around to yell at him for another 10 minutes and to call his mother. Before letting him go, Death Arms had punched Izuku, as was tradition for the two ever since their training days. Izuku got punched whenever he had annoyed or angered the pro. "You were impressive out there. It was very heroic of you to run out there like you did to rescue your friend," a voice praised from behind. Izuku jumped at the voice and turned, surprised to see the skeletal form of All Might walking up to him. Thank you. My body just sort of moved on its own," Izuku said while sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. There are stories about every hero, about how they became great. Almost every single one of them have one thing in common. Their bodies moved before they had a chance to think. You proved that saying today, young man. I wanted to commend you personally for doing such a heroic act, All Might said, and while Izuku couldn't help but let an aching grin form, he knew this wasn't all that All Might wanted to say. "But that's not all there is, isn't it? I doubt you tracked me down and followed me all the way here just to praise something any decent person would do." "Observant as ever, young Midoriya. I like that," All Might said. "And you're correct. Remember our earlier discussion about your hand-to-hand problem? How you'll be at a disadvantage until you receive a solution that'll help you turn that problem into a thing of the past." "Of course." "Well, what would you say if I possessed that solution and could give it to you?" All Might asked with a smile, his mind already made up. This would be his successor, the next symbol of peace. 10 months later, front gates of UA. It's been nearly a year since Izuku accepted the power of One for All, and 7 months since he was officially given the power. All Might had made him clean Takoba Municipal Beach for training, so he could gain more muscle in order to use One for All at a higher percentage from the beginning. As an added bonus, he could also train his magnetism quirk. All Might had predicted it would take 5 months for Izuku to finish cleaning, but the team convinced Death Arms and Gunhead to help out. The two rented trucks, which allowed Izuku to move more trash at a quicker rate. Because of them, he finished in 3. After a week, Izuku was able to convince All Might to let him tell Itsuka, Ibara, and Bakugo. Initially, they thought he was joking, with Bakugo using some less than ideal language. But once All Might showed up in his muscled form, before proceeding to poof into his skeletal form, they were quick to believe them. After that, All Might gave them the basic summary of what had happened to him, like he did Izuku. Now here he was, ready to take UA's entrance exam. Thanks to the ridiculous amounts of training he has done over the years, Izuku's body and quirk have improved, allowing him minimal control over certain non-ferrous metals and the ability to lift somewhere about 2 tons. But, because of one-for-all stockpiling power, his magnetism quirk received a boost and upgrade, allowing him to lift more than 2.5. He can now control most, if not all, metals known to man in any way, shape, or form he so desires to an extent. Izuku felt an overwhelming sense of awe and wonder as he stared up at the giant building that was UA. The windows and gates shined brightly as the sunlight bounced off of them. The grass was neat and cut as low as possible, and Izuku felt some form of intimidation as the golden UA stared down at him. This was it, what he and his friends have been training for ever since they were kids. How long are we gonna let the fucking nerd stare and wonder? Bakugo asked the 2 girls on either side of him. As long as he wants cats, as long as he wants, Kendo said, happy that they were finally here. The sun is shining down upon us on this glorious day. To be here, with you all by my side, is truly a gift from the Lord, Ibara said, causing Bakugo to roll his eyes. Don't get him wrong, he liked Ibara and whatever, but out of all the friends Izuku could have made, why the hell was it this Jesus freak? But cats is right, Izuku. If we stand here for another minute or 2, we're gonna be late, Kendo informed, causing Izuku to shake his head. Oh, all right. Sorry about that. I just never thought that I'd be standing here one day, Izuku replied while rubbing the back of his head sheepishly, causing Kendo to roll her eyes. You literally have the power of All Might, and you still didn't think you'd end up here? Maybe Cats is right about you needing some sense beat into you once in a while. Right? That's what I keep fucking saying, but you're always like, no, cats don't beat up my boyfriend, and blah blah blah. You two disgust me, the blonde growled, causing the 2 teens to blush and try to stutter out a response. Bakugo, please refrain from mocking our friends over such a sensitive topic, Ibara pleaded, not enjoying the feeling in her chest at the thought of her 2 friends dating. She couldn't tell what the feeling was, but it was rather unpleasant. I won't mock them if they hurry up. Let's go already, he shouted, shocking the 2 blushing teens and stopping them from being stuttering messes. They drew some stares from the people standing around them. I'm going to kick your ass, Cats, Kendo growled in annoyance. Do you think people will notice if he goes missing? Izuku whispered to her as the 4 started walking towards the front doors of UA. Our Lord will notice, but perhaps we can ask for forgiveness once the deed is done. Fuck you all, Bakugo shouted, causing the 3 to laugh. Grumbling, the blonde tried to think of different ways to get back at each of them as fast as possible. Ibara would be easy as he could just pretend to burn a Bible. For Itsuka, he could just make fun of her and Deku's relationship. And Deku, well, you can't beat a classic, even though it's cheap. Oops, Bakugo said while sticking his left foot out, causing the green-haired teen to trip. That motherfucker, Izuku thought as he felt himself falling towards the pavement. He could hear Kendo call out his name and expected a giant hand or vine to save him, but instead felt himself suddenly stop midair, a mere 2 inches away from the pavement. Are you okay? A feminine voice asked from behind him. Turning his head, he saw a petite girl with bob-cut-style brown hair, which was shoulder-length, and big brown eyes. Her skin was pale, and she had a little pink mark on both of her cheeks. He found himself turning pink from the pretty smile that she was giving him. Cute was the first word to come to his mind as she grabbed him and made him stand on his feet. I stopped you with my quirk. I'm sorry I didn't ask first, but I figured you wouldn't mind me catching you, she said, never losing her smile. Thank you. I appreciate that. He gave her a smile in return. Her quirk must let her control gravity, he deduced. You know that wasn't very nice, trying to trip your friend like that. You should apologize. She sent a nasty scowl towards the blonde. Uffed, "Fuck off," was his simple reply, before he felt himself getting smacked upside the head. Ow. Jesus Christ. This girl is correct. You should apologize. And don't speak the Lord's name in vain. Ibera scolded while retracting her vine. Ibera, I wanted to smack him. Fuck you, man-hands. Man-hands. While Bakugo and Itsuka began to fight, with Ibera trying to break them apart, Izuku and the new girl could only sweat drop. Don't mind him. That's just his shitty personality. I'm Izuku Midoriya, by the way, and thank you for the save. No problem. I'm Ochako Uraraka. It's nice to meet you. The girl, Ochako, replied with a bright smile. This of course made Izuku start blushing pink once again. Yelling caught their attention, and they turned once more to the group of fighting teens. So, wanna walk in together? Uraraka questioned, causing Izuku to nod. Sure. 30 minutes later, Battle Zone B gates. Before long, Bakugo and Itsuka stopped their fighting, allowing them and Ibera to follow Izuku inside UA. For 20 minutes, President Mike gave a presentation on what to expect during the combat side of the entrance exam. There were 4 zones where the students would be split up into A, B, C, and D, where the students would have to fight and destroy different robots. The more dangerous the robot, the more points awarded, and the more points you had, the likelihood of you passing increased. It was quite straightforward. Bakugo ended up by himself in Zone A. Izuku was in B, Itsuka in C, and Ibera in D. Izuku deduced that this was done to prevent any team-ups between people from the same school. After wishing each other good luck, or in Bakugo's case, threatening them to do well, the 4 went to their separate buses and to their separate zones. Right now, Izuku only recognized 2 people, one of which he wasn't happy about. There was a blue-haired boy with glasses, the same one who had yelled at him and Bakugo for talking during Mick's presentation. The other was Uraraka, the girl who saved him from falling earlier. Maybe I should go say hi, or wish her good luck? He thought, watching her. She had her eyes closed while attempting to control her breathing. She was probably just nervous as he felt. No, I think I'll leave her alone. Need to focus on myself for the time being. Right, let's start. Get moving, Mike shouted from above, but was met with blank and confused stares. There are no countdowns in real battles. Come on, you're wasting precious time, the loudmouth hero shouted from atop his tower. As green lightning danced around Izuku, he shot forward before anyone else could blink. The crowd behind him watched as he sped towards 3 one-point robots 1 second. Before in a blur, they became headless the very next. Standing behind the 3 headless robots as they fell, Izuku dropped their heads on the ground before turning to the group. Come on, you heard the man. Try and keep up, he challenged, before speeding off again. This stirred the other competitors to start, realizing that each second lost was something that couldn't be brought back. He turned around 2 street corners, looking for more robots, before being faced with another, this time a 2-pointer. He raced off towards it, not giving it a chance to attack or run away as he hopped on its back and grabbed onto its tail. Using his strength, he pulled and stabbed the tip of the tail straight through the scorpion's head, destroying it. He would have ran away to find another bot, but it found him first as he felt the ground shake slightly with every step. Turning, he watched as a 3-pointer slowly walked down the fake street and towards him. Its red eyes flashed as it stomped its 2 front legs on the ground, the missile silos on each side of its body opening as they locked onto the teen. It made some kind of beeping noise before shooting several missiles at Izuku. As his hands glowed green, Izuku thrusted them forward, causing the missiles to slow their speed in the air before stopping entirely. With a flick of his wrist, the missiles turned and flew back towards the robot before it blew up. 8 points. He smiled to himself before running off to find more bots. 9 minutes later. After 9 minutes and bagging a total of 75 villain points, Izuku was feeling quite confident about his chances of passing. But he wasn't cocky and knew that there was the possibility of other students equaling his points or having more. So he continued to wage war against the machines as he flew down the streets of the fake city. He would have had 80, maybe even 90 points, but some of the robots he had his eye on and was getting ready to destroy were being destroyed by others. On top of that, he's had to save several students who were in danger. One blonde-headed boy had apparently gotten a stomach ache, but Izuku was able to carry him to a safe area. Another blonde-headed boy apparently ran out of time while using a quirk he had copied, forcing Izuku to step in and smash the one-pointer who would have hurt the guy. While the guy growled and barked about not needing any help, Izuku could hear the guy whisper thanks as he sped off. Right now, he was running down a street filled with melted three-pointers and other students looking for more bots. The robots' heads had been melted to mush, leaving the rest of their bodies, including the missile silos, completely intact. He noted this, realizing they could come in handy if any more robots would come charging his way. Boom, boom, boom. The ground underneath him thudded and shook with a force that could rival All Might. Looking down the streets, Izuku could see clouds of smoke rise and gasped in shock as a building in the distance toppled over. He watched, mesmerized as a giant form walked through the cloud. A giant black and green hand lunged forward and gripped onto the top of a building, before a giant green head with 8 red lights poked through. It made a deep and loud beeping sound as it stared down at the students. Where the fuck do they get this kind of funding? He asked himself as other students ran past him in order to escape. He turned himself and was about to follow, but was stopped when he heard a scream. Ow! A voice shouted, one he recognized. Turning back around, he realized that Uraraka was stuck under some rubble and that she was struggling to break free. Immediately his brain went into overdrive, thinking of his possible options, weighing their pros and cons when he remembered what currently surrounded him, three-pointers. As his hands glowed green, he reached out, concentrating at the task at hand. The rocket silos began to crack open before every missile available floated out of them. 40 in total were now under his control. Throwing his hands forward, the missiles began to fly in the air before they all made contact with the zero-pointer's stomach. The robot seemed to screech as it was attacked, the force of the missiles sending it stumbling and falling backwards. But the robot was quick, far quicker than his expectations, and latched onto 2 buildings before it toppled over. Izuku growled as green electricity danced across his form before he sped towards the robot. Moving at an incredible speed, Izuku smashed through the zero-pointer's legs, destroying the only things keeping it still standing. The robot finally fell to the ground, unable to continue its rampage, and caused a giant cloud of smoke to travel through the city's street. Uraraka braced herself as the robot fell and was thrown into a coughing fit because of the smoke that was produced. "Are you okay?" a familiar voice questioned. Looking up, she felt her heart stop at the view. Izuku Midoriya was giving her a warm smile as he stared down at her, a golden hue surrounding him as the smoke cleared just enough for the sun to shine down upon them. Was she dead, and was he an angel escorting her to heaven? "Let's get this off of you," he said as green electricity covered his arms. With a push, he lifted the slab of concrete off of her. "Can you walk?" She attempted to move her legs and hissed in pain as a result. Looking down, they both realized her right ankle was turning a greenish-purple color. "Quite a nasty sprain you've got there, young lady. Are you all right?" a feminine voice asked, causing the two to turn towards the source. They watched as an elderly lady with a cane walked towards them. "Recovery girl," Izuku whispered in awe, causing Uraraka to cock her head to the side. "Who?" "The youthful heroine hero, Recovery Girl. She is one of the most amazing healing quirks known to date. Ever since becoming a pro, she saved the lives of over 10,000 people, especially heroes like Ectoplasm after he lost both of his legs. Sadly, she couldn't regrow them, but she was able to close the wounds and keep him from bleeding out. Quite the fan I have here. I'm flattered," she giggled, before turning to Uraraka. Her lips extended and were firmly planted on the girl's forehead before retracting. In less than a second, her sprained ankle was fixed, as were the scrapes and bruises she had received. "Whoa, it's fully healed," the brunette exclaimed before standing up. "Thank you so much," Uraraka tried to say, but stopped as a sudden wave of tiredness washed over her. For a second, she began falling backwards, but was caught by Izuku. "Whoa, careful there. Her quirk can heal you, but it takes away a lot of your energy as a result. You'll be sleeping good tonight," he joked, but the girl in his arms didn't hear anything he said. Only one thought had crossed her mind throughout the exchange. "And muscles," she thought, face turning a bright red. He's right, you know. I want you resting here for at least 10 minutes before leaving. Recovery girl ordered as Izuku sat Uraraka on the ground. The hero followed the order up by placing several gummies in the blushing girl's hand. Anything I can do to help, recovery girl? The city's pretty big. Maybe I could run around and bring back anyone that needs healing? Izuku offered. No thank you, Sonny. You've helped quite enough for one day. You head on out. I'll search for any wounded, she said with a smile. The boy nodded, before bidding both her and the girl goodbye as he left. With him gone, she turned towards the toppled zero-pointer. He faced the zero-pointer without a second thought to save her, and saved several others throughout the test. She smiled to herself, before going to heal the other students. You've picked a good one, Tashinori. 1 week later. Tying a tie wasn't a skill Izuku had picked up during childhood, so it made sense why even now at the age of 16, he was having trouble with his new mandatory red one. His tongue poked through his lips as he concentrated, trying to get this final loop just right. It has been 1 week since he and his friends participated in the UA entrance exam and 4 days since they had gotten their results. Once they did, they met up and opened them one by one. Itsuka had ended up in 10th place, with 50 villain points and 10 hero points, giving her a total of 60. Vlad King congratulated her and welcomed her into Class 1B. Ibara had scored 45 villain points and 20 hero points, giving her a total of 65 and landing her in 8th place. Like Itsuka, Vlad King congratulated her and welcomed her into Class 1B. Bakugo ended up with 77 villain points and 0 hero points, which gave him 2nd place. Present Mike praised his bot-killing skills and welcomed him to Class 1A. Izuku had 75 villain points and an astounding 80 hero points, giving him a total of 155 points in 1st place. All Might had praised his heroing skills and welcomed him into Class 1A. The 4 friends were ecstatic about the news of them all being accepted into UA, and while they were disappointed about being in different classes, it was overshadowed by the overwhelming joy they felt. Izuku, honey, it's time to get going, his mother called from the living room, causing him to sigh in frustration before he exited the bathroom and walked into the living room. I know, but this stupid tie is being difficult, he exclaimed, only to be met with the sound of rapid clicking. He smiled at seeing his mother taking pictures of him. I can't tell if you're doing this for memories or blackmail. A little of both, she giggled before putting her phone away and walking up to her son. Wait until I tell my grandbabies their father couldn't tie his tie to save his life. I can't wait, she said, causing him to splutter. Gee, grandkids. Mom, don't you think that kind of talk is kinda early? I'm not even dating anyone yet. Yet being the key word. And, with the way those 2 friends of yours eye you when you're not looking, it's only a matter of time, she teased. You've been spending too much time with Kakin, he sighed, his cheeks turning red. Or, has he been spending too much time with me? She winked as she finished with his tie. There, all done. I can't wait to send these to your father. He's going to be so proud. Kinda wish he was here to tell me himself, but I guess a text will have to do, Izuku muttered before he heard her begin to sniffle. Mom, are you okay? I am just so proud, honey, and a little sad, she said, wiping her tears. You're growing up so fast, and you've come so far. Like I said, you'll always be my baby, but I miss my little superhero that used to run around here dressed as All Might in his onesie. Mom, I'll always be your little superhero, he smiled, bringing her back into a hug. I'm not wearing the onesie, though. You will if I say so. They both laughed before his mom pulled away. Blow them away, honey, and do your best. Trust me, they won't know what hit them. UA, outside classroom 1A. Staring at the gigantic door that stood between him and meeting his new classmates, Izuku was amazed at the fact he was now standing in the halls of UA, like so many legends before him. Heroes like All Might, 13, Ingenium, Kamui Woods, and more had walked up and down these halls, proving themselves in every way until they had graduated and become pros. It gave him a warm, fuzzy feeling knowing he was here like them, and that, one day, he would be like them. With a smile, he opened the door, ready to face his destiny. Take your feet off of that desk now. The blue-haired boy from Present Mix Presentation yelled at Kakin. Who? It's the first day and you're already disrespecting this academy by scuffing school property, you cretin. You're kidding me, right? Your old school put a stick up your ass? Or were you born with it? Kaken asked with a snarl. Izuku's sweat dropped at the scene. Well, at least Kaken is here. I have one friend. Let's start over, the blue-haired boy said, now trying to act calm and collected. I'm Tenya Ida from the semi-private academy. Ida introduced himself properly, sticking his hand out for a shake. Tenya Ida? Ingenium's little brother? No way. Huh? So you must think you're better than me. I'm gonna have fun destroying you. Bakugo said with a manic grin. You would threaten me? Ida questioned with a gasp. Your own classmate? Are you sure you're in the right place? Don't mind him. He's more talk than anything. Izuku spoke up, making his presence known. Everyone's head snapped to him as a result. I'm gonna kill you too, nerd. And what took you so long? I've been waiting here for 20 minutes. I didn't tell you to come so early. And I didn't expect you to take your sweet-ass time getting here. Hurry up next time. Good morning, Ida exclaimed, quick to get away from the violent blonde and approach the far more friendly brunette. My name is Tenya Ida, and I dash. I know, I've been here the whole time. Izuku cut Ida off before extending his hand out. I'm Izuku Midoriya. It's nice to meet you. And to you as well. Thank you for not threatening me like your acquaintance over there. I assume you're the more level-headed individual of the pair. Fuck you. Your assumption is correct. Monsieur Midoriya, it's a pleasure knowing you passed the test. The blonde boy in the front seat cut in. Yuga Aoyama, at your service. Oh yeah, stomachache guy. Glad to see you made it in. How are you feeling? My stomach has recovered fully since the exam. Nothing can keep me from sparkling the brightest. Not even my blasted tummy. Is that you, Midoriya? Awesome. I'm so happy you made it. An excited voice exclaimed from behind, causing his eyes to widen and a grin to form. He spun around and felt his heart stop and his cheeks heat up upon seeing Uraraka. She still had that amazing smile. You were amazing out there. You were like punch and bam and pow, and the robot was like boom after you knocked it down. It was awesome. She looked so excited as she retold the tales of his heroic feat, eyes sparkling like a kid in a toy shop. She's so kota. I see Midoriya saved you as well during the exam. His heroism knows no bounds, Yuga asked, causing Izuku to smile and bashfully rub the back of his head. You should have seen him. Like I said, that stupid robot never stood a chance against him. You're feeding his ego, Bakugo groaned, laying his head on the desk. What do you think we're doing today besides orientation? I wonder what our teachers are like. I can't wait to meet everybody. Uraraka exclaimed in excitement. If you're just here to make friends, then you can just pack up your stuff now. A bored-sounding voice spoke from behind them. The three students froze, and Uraraka noticed the two boys were staring down at the ground behind her. Slowly turning, she noticed a man in a yellow sleeping bag laying right behind her. Welcome to UA's hero course, he said with his monotone voice while shuffling around inside his sleeping bag for a moment before he pulled a drink out, which he began sipping from. Standing up in the bag, he unzipped it and walked out. It took 8 seconds before you all finally decided to shut up. That's not gonna work. Time is precious. Rational students would understand that, he scolded. Must be a pro hero, but why does he seem so worn out? And that scarf, it's gotta be Eraserhead. No other hero has a scarf like that. I'm Shota Aizawa, your teacher, he informed, shocking most of the class. He was the teacher? The creepy-looking old dude who looked like he could pass out at any second? The one who had come crawling in like a caterpillar in his bright yellow sleeping bag. Right, let's get to it, he said while pulling out clothing from his bag. Put these on and go outside. Outside. A quirk assessment test was the collective question asked by most of the class. Izuku was one of the few who didn't question it. To him, it made sense. Aizawa wanted to see what the standings were in the class between all 20 of them, and probably wanted to identify who needed help and in what areas. In a way, Izuku felt kind of bad. Not to sound cocky, but he doubted anyone here would be able to do better than him, even if he was using one for all at 5%. He was, however, excited to see and study the quirks of his fellow classmates. But what about orientation? We're going to miss it, Uraraka asked, worried that they could get in trouble. If you're going to make it to the big leagues, you can't waste time on pointless ceremonies, he said, surprising everyone. Here at UA, we're not tied down to traditions. That means I get to run my class however I see fit. He doesn't like wasting time, and he's not traditional. He's going to work us into the ground. You've been taking standardized tests most of your lives, but you never got to use your quirks in physical exams before. The country is still trying to pretend we're all created equal by not letting those with the most power excel. It's not rational, Aizawa continued in a rather irritated voice. I was correct. He wants to see where we currently stand in the class and to see whether or not we actually belong here. One day, the Ministry of Education will learn this. Iowa's eyes swept across the students, and they lingered on Izuku, the boy with 2 quirks, the boy who had gotten the most points on the practical exam, and the one who had saved several students during the exam. The teacher could already tell this kid was going to give him the biggest headache, call it a gut feeling, but he could use him to prove a point. Midoriya, what was your farthest distance throw with a softball when you were in junior high? I think 60 meters, Izuku said, surprised he had been singled out. Right. Try doing it with your quirk, Aizawa ordered, pulling out a softball from his pocket before throwing it to the green net. Anything goes, just stand in the circle, he continued while pointing to said circle. Doing as he was told, Izuku walked over and stood in the middle of the circle. Kaken, how far? He questioned while turning to the group of students. In the thousands. In the thousands, coming right up. Izuku exclaimed as he winded his arm back, green electricity dancing around his body. Thrusting his body forward, the ball flew from his hand so hard that it created a shockwave that washed over the group behind him. After a few seconds, Aizawa looked down and showed off the result. Deku, you fucking show off. Oops, overdid it. Izuku chuckled upon seeing his score, 5,049. 5,049. That's fucking insane. A blonde boy with a black lightning bolt in his hair exclaimed, causing others to murmur in agreement. This is Izuku Midoriya, the guy who placed first in the entrance exam with 75 villain points and 80 hero points. He single-handedly saved 3 students, 2 of whom are your classmates, and took down the 0-pointer. He is your ultimate test, the mountain you must climb to prove yourself. He won't pull any punches, and if you want to keep up with the likes of him, you'll need to go above and beyond plus ultra. Izuku blushed at the speech, surprised Aizawa wanted him to be the gauge by which the others could measure themselves. This just meant he couldn't hold back. I want to go? That looks like fun, the pink-skinned girl clapped excitedly. This is what I'm talking about. We get to use our quirks as much as we want, a boy with black hair and strange elbows said gleefully. So this looks fun, huh? Aizawa asked, his voice changing from his usual monotone tone. Oh no, she made him mad. You have 3 years here to become a hero. You think it's going to be games and playtime? Idiots. Izuku could see that Aizawa was smiling, which made him gulp. Today you'll be competing in 8 physical tests to gauge your potential. Whoever comes in last has none and will be expelled immediately. What? The whole class shouted. Even Izuku hadn't seen this coming. No one's that crazy, right? No, this must be some kind of test or trick or something to make us try harder and go beyond, right? I mean, come on, no one's that evil, right? Like I said, I get to decide how this class runs. Understand, Aizawa had a maniac grin at this point. If that's a problem, you can head home right now. When no one budged, he nodded. Okay, let's begin. The first test was the 50-meter dash. A small little robot stood at the end to record who got what time. Izuku had the best time with 2.50 seconds, beating the second best time of 3.04, which was held by Ida. Izuku's opponent in the race, Kaken, got 4.13. After that was the grip strength test. The guy with 6 arms managed to get 540.0 kilograms and was second to Izuku, who scored 907 kilograms. This had blown absolutely everyone out of the water. The third test was the standing long jump. Like Kaken and Yuga, he easily cleared the sandbox. Test 4 was the repeated side jumps. Izuku, to his surprise, ended up in second and was beaten by the ball-headed guy. Test 5 was the ball toss, and Izuku was only beaten by Uraraka due to getting a score of literally infinity. The next 3 tests were a distance run, the seated toe touch, and sit-ups. Like most of the other tests, Izuku scored the best in each of them. Alright, time to give you your results. I've ranked you all from best to worst. You should probably have a good idea of your standing already. I'm just gonna pull up the whole list. It's not worth my time going over each individual score. The class waited with bated breath as their teacher fiddled around with his device. Many were worried about their placements, while Izuku and Bakugo were much calmer about it. Aizawa finally pulled the list up, and everyone began searching for their names. Izuku smiled to himself upon seeing his name at the very top in first place, but did feel bad for who was 20th. He looked over and watched as the ball boy began tearing up. He was about to go over and comfort the guy when Aizawa spoke up. "And I was lying. No one's going home," he said, drawing confused and wide-eyed reactions from everyone. "That was just a rational deception to make you give it your all in the tests." He grinned. "Way odd. I kinda assumed so. Sorry for not saying anything. I was scared that if I did, he'd change his mind and actually expel someone." Izuku chuckled sheepishly, aware of the glares he was receiving. "It was fucking obvious, extras. At least someone else caught on, but I'm surprised the rest of you didn't figure that out. I'm sorry, I guess I probably should have said something," the girl with the ponytail stated, drawing deadpan looks from the others. "Pretty nerve-wracking, huh?" the weird elbow guy asked the red-haired boy next to him. "Nah, I'm always down for a challenge," he grinned. Bakugo, who was behind him, just grunted in annoyance. "We're done for today. Pick up a syllabus in the classroom and read it over before class tomorrow." "Yes, sir," came the collective cry from the group. With a nod, Aizawa walked off, eyes meeting All Might's when he turned around the corner. The giant man smiled at him, while Aizawa merely nodded. Later, after school. "So he lied to get everyone to try their best?" Kendo questioned as she, Izuku, Bakugo, and Ibara continued their walk home. "Based on your description of today, I must admit your teacher seems to have quite a colorful personality," Ibara said. "I won't lie, I wish Vlad King had us do a test like you guys instead of joining the orientation. I could hardly stay awake." "Midoriya, wait up," 2 voices called out. Turning, the greenette was surprised to see Ida and Uraraka running to catch up with them. "Friends of yours, Izuku?" Ibara asked. "Yeah, they're my new classmates. That's Tinya Ida, and this is Ochako Uraraka," he informed while gesturing to his new classmates, who waved in greeting. "Ida, Uraraka, these are my friends Itsuka Kendo and Ibara Shiozaki from Class 1B, he introduced, causing his 2 friends to wave as well. "And we all know the angry Pomeranian that is Katsuki Bakugo, or as I call him, Kaken." "Fuck you, Deku. Why does he call you Deku?" Uraraka questioned. "When we were younger, a few bullies gave me the nickname. Kaken scared them off and started using it as a nickname for me. He said he'll stop once I stop calling him Kaken, which will never happen." "Deku, I like it. It's kinda cute," Uraraka said as she started to blush. "Can I call you Deku as well?" Upon seeing the blush, Itsuka started to feel jealous, worried that there seemed to be more competition. For Ibara, that nasty feeling started affecting her again, one she still couldn't name. "Of course, all my friends can if they want. The invitation is extended to you as well, Ida. While I'm grateful for the offer, I think I'll address you as Midoriya for now. Is that acceptable?" "Of course," Izuku agreed. "So, why'd you guys chase after me? Is everything okay?" "Yup. We just wanted to know if we could join you. If not, we understand. We wouldn't want to ruin the conversation you were having before we rudely interrupted. And, of course, we dash." "Oh my god, you're killing me. Just fucking come with us and stop talking." Bakugo barked before shouting as something smacked the back of his head. "Ow. Fucking stop that. What did I say about using the Lord's name in vain?" Ibara shouted back, causing everyone to chuckle. With a pep in their steps and their heads held high, they were looking forward to tomorrow. The next day, UA. Many believed that UA only taught classes that would teach them how to become a better hero. Those students would become disappointed. However, once they learned the truth, UA really wasn't that different compared to middle school. UA didn't just have heroing classes and whatnot. It also taught the basics. Present Mike taught English, Ectoplasm taught math, Midnight taught art history, Snipe taught science, and Cementos taught modern literature. But now it was fifth period, which meant it was finally time for the class everyone had been looking forward to, heroics. And, as they waited for their teacher to show up, some were tossing out theories on who they thought it would be. "So who do you think will be the teacher?" Kaminari asked. "I overheard a couple of kids say it was Endeavor, of all people. Wouldn't it be sweet if the second-ranked pro taught us?" Zero said, telling the other about the rumors he's heard. "I can assure you my father is not the one teaching us. And if he was, I'd gladly drop out of UA." A dual white and red-headed boy in the back of the class scowled, causing many to chuckle at what they thought was a joke. But Izuku knew better. He could hear the venom in his tone. Shoto Todoroki, youngest child of Endeavor, the second-ranked pro hero for years under All Might. Wonder why his mood always seems to sour when his dad is mentioned. Izuku thought to himself before remembering the scar on the teen's face. Did Endeavor do that? Or was partially the reason for forming? Training gone wrong. "I am here," shouted a voice from the hallway, breaking Izuku from his thoughts. Coming through the door like a hero, All Might exclaimed, sliding the door open before leaning in, his cape blowing in the breeze. "Wait, how is it moving like that? There's no wind." "Do you need the fan anymore?" he heard Present Mike ask from the hallway. Izuku watched as All Might turned and shook his head, and the wind stopped blowing. This exchange, which apparently went unnoticed by everyone besides Izuku, caused the team to sweat drop. "Seriously? I can't believe it's really All Might. So he really is a teacher. This year's gonna be awesome. Isn't that his Silver Age costume? I'm getting goosebumps, it's so retro." These were some of the comments and questions that the students shouted as the #1 pro himself walked into the room. Many found it hard to believe that All Might would be their teacher, but here he was, plain as day. "Welcome to the most important class at UA High. Think of it as Heroing 101. Here you will learn the basics of being a pro and what it means to fight in the name of good," All Might exclaimed. Some of the students kept their cool and remained calm, even if on the inside they were excited beyond belief. Others were more verbal about their excitement, with some visibly shaking in their seats as their adrenaline already started to pump. Izuku, unsurprisingly, was one such student. "Let's get into it," All Might exclaimed, striking multiple poses with every word he spoke before he pulled out a flashcard. "Today's lesson will pull no punches." The flashcard had one word on it: battle. "Fight training," Bakugo shouted in manic glee, hands already smoking in anticipation. "But one of the keys to being a hero is looking good," All Might shouted, pointing to the wall of the classroom. Shelves with suitcases attached to them began to pop out and extend, showing that each case had a number. These were designed for you based on your Quirk registration forms and the requests you sent in before school started. The class roared in awe and shock at the statement, and everyone began radiating excitement at seeing their costumes in physical form, not just on paper or in memory. "Grab your case and head towards the locker rooms. Let's get a move dash." All Might was cut off at a knock at the door. "Oh, yes? Please come in," he shouted before the door slid open and Power Loader's metallic head popped in. "Is Izuku Midoriya in here?" "Ah, yes, he is. Do you need him, Power Loader?" "For a few minutes, yeah." Izuku's eyes widened in surprise at the request. Had he done something wrong? Had Principal Nizu requested to see him and sent the hero? Or was there perhaps a problem with his suit design that Power Loader needed to talk to him about? Kakin turned around and gave him a questioning look, but Izuku shrugged in response. He could feel the stares coming from the rest of the class as well. "Grab your case and head along with Power Loader, young Midoriya. But make sure you head to the locker rooms once you're finished." "Yes, sir." With a nod, Izuku got up, grabbed his case, and exited the room while following the metallic hero. After walking for a minute in silence, he finally decided to ask, "Excuse me, sir, but am I in trouble?" "Relax, kid, you're all good. A student I know requested to see you before you started any of your combat training. She's in the development studio right now." "Oh, was that all?" Okay, he had been worrying over nothing. But this just raised more questions. What student wanted to see him? He hadn't spoken to anyone else other than a few in 1A, and last he checked, everyone was in class just now. So who could it be? Here we are, Power Loader stated, walking up to gigantic metal doors. Head on in and see what she wants, then get back to class. Got it. Got it. Izuku nodded before watching the metal-clad hero walk away. Staring up at the large doors, he grabbed hold of the handle before opening it and stepping inside. He was shocked by the amount of technology and inventions that were scattered around the lab. He walked around, noticing that inventions were piled up high on the tables and floor. Some were even hanging up from the ceiling. He could see a broken jetpack, a pair of metal boots, a few cracked helmets, and even a flamethrower. Hi Izuku, a voice said from behind the teen, wobbly and tense, almost as if scared. This stopped him dead in his tracks. His eyes narrowed, trying to place where exactly he had heard the voice before. It couldn't have been someone from middle school. He and Kaken were the only ones to make it into UA. Maybe it was someone from the entrance exam that had been talking before the test started? Turning around, he saw a beautiful girl in brown work boots, dark green pants, and a low-cut black tank top that showed off her assets rather well. His jaw dropped as the realization hit, and why wouldn't it? Never in a million years would he forget those gorgeous yellow eyes. May? He asked, unsure if this was a dream or real life. She gave a wobbly smile and nodded before rushing across the room and nearly knocking the boy off of his feet when she practically tackled him, arms latching onto him, holding on for dear life, as if he would disappear once she let go. He returned the embrace, hugging her tight and holding her close to him. They stayed locked together for a few minutes before he pulled back to look at her. What are you doing here? Where have you been? Why haven't you called? We missed you so much. Izuku whispered the last part, feeling himself flush with his slip-up. His heart began to break as tears slowly started to cascade down May's cheeks and fall to the ground below. She didn't answer. Instead, she latched onto him again and began sobbing into his shoulder. He once again returned the embrace and kept quiet instead of asking more questions. He rocked his old friend back and forth, rubbing her back in hopes of comforting her. It took another minute or two before she calmed down, only releasing the occasional sniffle. I can't tell you, May said at last, regret lacing her tone. I want to, but I can't, and not yet at least. I understand. Take as much time as you need. Izuku could wait for answers. The only thing he wanted right now was to comfort his friend. I missed you so much. I missed you more, she challenged, trying to lighten the mood and change subjects. She had so much to tell him, but so very little time. I have something for you. You should take it and head back to class. Fuck class. It can wait. You can't, he exclaimed, causing her to giggle in response. There's my hero, putting people first and everything else second. May sighed happily, glad some things never change. Of course, after a few seconds of calming down, her head finally registered the feeling of their bodies mushed together. Okay, maybe I am happy that some things have changed, she thought to herself, blushing at having his muscles wrapped around her. It sits over here, she said, breaking the embrace and walking over to a workbench, hoping her blush would die down by the time they reached it. What's over here? Izuku questioned as he followed, trying his best to keep his eyes from looking down. His old friend had certainly grown in more ways than one. Remember what I promised you when we were younger? May asked as she reached the workbench in question, which was covered with a white sheet. A rather large bump rose from the middle of the bench. You promised me a lot of things when we were young, May. Mind narrowing it down. The pinkette giggled in response before grabbing the edge of the sheet and ripping it off of the bench. Izuku gasped upon seeing what lay beneath. Training ground beta? Wonder what's taking Midoriya so long, Kaminari said out loud, noticing it's been a solid 8 minutes since Power Loader had pulled him from class. All Might had stated previously that he wouldn't start without Midoriya, so right now he was literally twiddling his thumbs as they waited. Nerd probably did some dumb shit and got caught. Bakugo scoffed, foot tapping impatiently. He was ready and raring to go. Aren't you two friends? Why do you keep referring to him as nerd and whatever? Not very manly, if you ask me. Kirishima frowned, not enjoying the blonde's name calling towards his supposed friend. Well, it's a good thing I didn't ask you, shitty hair. Besides, it's how I show affection. Shitty way of showing affection. Toru whispered to Mina, who giggled in response. Do you ever stop being an asshole? Or is it something you can't turn off? A voice spoke from the darkened hallway that led to the locker rooms. Everyone perked up at the voice, and some sighed in relief and happiness. Midoriya was back, which meant they could finally begin the class. As Izuku started walking down the hall and into the light, his hero costume started being revealed. Mint green combat boots reached up to his calf and ended a few inches below his knees, with the toe cap, vamp, and heel all in black. Forest green pants that covered up to his waist with knee pads and a utility belt that matched in color. His stomach and sides were covered in rows of alternating mint green and white. His chest was forest green with a white circle in the very middle. A silver object hung around his neck, shaped like a smiling mouth. His shoulders were forest green, which was followed by a small strip of mint that measured 2 inches of vertical length, then a strip of white measured in a vertical length of 6 inches. After that, more forest green led down to thick black gloves with a mint green underside that reached to his forearm. What caught the attention of some was the piece of metal hanging off of his right arm. It was a triangle with a rounded bottom and connected to a smaller circle at the tip. From the outside going in, it had a strip of neon green, then a strip of black, followed by another strip of neon green, and the center was pure black. He received some whistles when he and his costume were revealed, causing him to smile wide and blush pink in embarrassment. He strolled through the crowd and made his way up front, but almost tripped on his own feet upon hearing some of the whispers being thrown out. Damn, that's Japan's ass right there. Mina, stop being such a perv. Toru scolded the pinkette. What? I can't help liking what I like. I'm going to die from embarrassment one of these days, Izuku thought as he finally stood in front of the group. Welcome back, young Midoriya, All Might exclaimed, happy to have his successor and student back so they could start today's lesson. And might I say you're looking quite sharp. But what is that piece of metal on your arm? Oh, it's a gift from someone in the support course, he said, before the metal glowed green. With a snap it extended and rounded, becoming a circular shield. She made it to where it can extend and become a full-blown shield when I use my magnet quirk. And if I use it again the shield glowed green, and it snapped back to its original rounded triangle shape. It goes back to normal. Why the fuck would someone from the support course give you a shield? Bakugo questioned, confused. I'll, tell you after class, Izuku said, confusing the blonde even more. Now that young Midoriya is here, it's time for combat training. Sir, this is the fake city from our entrance exam. Does that mean we'll be conducting urban battles again? A robot-looking guy to Izuku's right asked with his hand raised. That must be Ida. He looks so cool. With a smile, Izuku's eyes began to wander around, looking at everyone else's costume. Wow, they all look great. Some more than others. His thoughts trailed off as he got a good look at Uraraka, the pink-skinned girl, and Yaoyorozu. His cheeks started turning pink, which didn't go unnoticed by Mina as she stared at him from the corner of her eye, a small smile forming on her lips. Ah, he's checking me out. Maybe I'll give him a better look later on. Not quite. I'm gonna move you 2 steps ahead. All Might answered. Most of the villain fights you see on the news take place outside. However, statistically speaking, the run-ins with the more dastardly evildoers take place indoors. Think about it. Backroom deals, home invasions, secret underground lairs. Truly intelligent villains stay hidden in the shadows. For this training exercise, you'll be split into teams of good guys and bad guys and fight 2-on-2 indoor battles. What followed after that was a flurry of questions regarding the training exercise. Wasn't this too advanced? How badly could they hurt the other team? How were the teams going to be created? Was All Might going to decide who would win? These were just a small taste of questions asked, and Izuku tried not to grin at the slowly irritated look All Might was getting from getting cut off. Listen up. The situation is this dash, All Might shouted, cutting everyone off as he opened a small booklet. A script? Izuku thought in surprise. The villains have hidden a nuclear missile somewhere in their hideout. The heroes must try to foil their plans. In order to do this, the good guys must either catch the evildoers or recover the missile. Likewise, the bad guys can win if they protect their payload or capture the heroes. Time is limited, so we'll choose teams by drawing lots. Isn't there a better way? Ida questioned, surprised by All Might's choice. Couldn't the teams be made based on how compatible two quirks were? That seemed like the more logical approach. Think about it. Pros often have to team up with other pros who are on the scene. You can't just wait for a pro you know or work well with to show up when dealing with something like a hostage situation or an attack. Izuku explained. I see. Life is a series of random events. Excuse my rudeness. Ito apologized, bowing. No sweat. It's time to draw. There were 10 teams in total, with each team receiving a letter to easily identify them. Izuku was surprised when his name was the first to be called, and his surprise only grew when it was revealed his partner would be Momo Yaoyorozu. They would be Team A. Glancing towards the girl in question, their eyes met, and he shot her a friendly wave, one which she returned. The others' teams were as follow. Team B, Shoto Todoroki and Mizo Shoji. Team C, Tenya Ida and Ochako Uraraka. Team D, Katsuki Bakugo and Ejiro Kirishima. Team E, Mina Ashido and Yuga Aoyama. Team F, Rikido Sato and Koji Koda. Team G, Hyokujiro and Denki Kaminari. Team H, Fumikage Tokoyami and Tsuyu Azui. Team I, Mashareo Ojiro and Toru Hagakure. Team J, Hantashiro and Minoru Mineta. After the teams were created, All Might brought out 2 more boxes, with one being white and while the other was black. The black box had the word villain on it, while white was labeled hero. He stuck his hands inside and began moving them around. I declare that the first teams to fight will be these guys, he exclaimed, pulling out a ball with the letter A on it from the villain box and a ball with the letter D on it from the hero box. Izuku's and Momo's eyes widened in surprise at being the first team to go, and as the villain team no less. Bakugo had a manic grin upon seeing his team and who he'd be fighting. He was more than ready to kick some ass. Kirishima grinned as well, happy he was getting some action sooner rather than later. Team A will be the villains, and Team D will be the heroes. Everyone else can head to the monitoring room to watch, he informed the class. Yes, sir, responded the 16 who weren't fighting. They began to move while the final 4 stayed with All Might. Bad guys, go in and start setting up. You'll have 5 minutes before the good guys will be released and the battle begins. Bad guys, the key to being successful for this challenge is to embody villainy. Think from the perspective of an evildoer. Yes, sir. The 4 nodded before Izuku and Momo made their way into the building, leaving the others outside. Neither of them paid any mind to the fact that Bakugo was literally vibrating with excitement. Top floor. There's 5 floors in total between us and the entrance. In theory, it'll take them a minute or 2 to search each floor fully, but knowing Kaken, he won't do a lot of searching. He'll probably assume we're at the top and blast his way up here. Depending on how much sweat he has, it'll take him about 20, maybe 30 seconds to reach this floor. Izuku explained to his teammate as he paced back and forth, trying to think of a plan. Then there's Kirishima. He'll more than likely want to search each floor, and will either do it himself or follow Kaken's lead to avoid being left behind. What do we know about their quirks? Momo asked, trying to form her own plans as well. Kaken has explosive sweat he can ignite from his palms, and Kirishima has a hardening quirk. As long as Kaken is sweating, he'll be able to blast his way through any defense we put up. Meanwhile, Kirishima has a limit to how long he can harden. Izuku said, before stopping. Yaoyorozu, what's your quirk? My quirk's name is Creation. I can materialize different objects from any part of my body, as long as I have stored fat and know the atomic configuration of said object. And, by chance, do you know the atomic configuration of, let's say, an industrial-sized air conditioner? Of course. I taught myself that back when I was 5 when the air conditioner at my parents' mansion broke. Is your idea to freeze the whole building so Bakugo can't sweat? Because it's going to take more than one to cool this whole building. Oh, I know, but those will probably speed up the process, Izuku said while pointing to multiple vents that were scattered around the room. So, are you ready to become villains? He asked, his own psychotic grin forming. Momo did her best to do her own evil smile, which was beyond cute, before turning around. Let's, she replied before opening her top. Her front soon began glowing pink. If she can make anything anywhere, does that mean she could make stuff? Izuku's mind trailed off, eyes wandering to her perky rear end before he literally slapped himself. I'm disgusting. God, I'm awful, but I really want to know. All right, let's begin the indoor combat training. Team A and Team D, your time starts now. All Might shouted in their earpieces, signaling them to begin. As soon as the signal to begin was given, the front doors of the building were blasted off its hinges, allowing the forms of Katsuki Bakugo and Eijiro Kirishima to walk through. They were met with a darkened hallway, with the only source of light being from behind them. Using the shitty darkness won't help you beat me, Deku. Just come on out so I can kill you already. Bakugo shouted at the top of his lungs as he walked through the doorway. Bro, you can't just threaten them like that. We're supposed to be heroes, remember? Kirishima pointed out as he followed the explosive blonde. There was a snap behind them before they heard a loud bang, and suddenly there was no light coming from behind them. They were now entirely swallowed by the darkness. Turning around, Kirishima walked towards where they had entered with his hand raised and felt cool metal against his fingertips. Feels like some kind of door. Great, looks like they trapped us. Kirishima sighed. I'm not some goddamn fucking rat, Deku. I'm going to use your body like fucking fertilizer once we win. Hee. A sinister-sounding laugh rose as rapid footsteps passed behind the duo. Bakugo pushed Kirishima out of the way and leapt in the direction the sounds had come from before setting off a blast. The hell was that? Kirishima exclaimed as he hardened himself, readying himself in case of a surprise attack. Bakugo didn't answer. Instead, his eyes wandered around the hallway as he tried to watch for any movement. To him, this didn't make any sense. Why would Deku be messing with them instead of attacking? He could easily take care of shitty hair and make this a 2 versus 1, but he wasn't. What was the enemy's game plan here? Another sinister laugh erupted in the hallway, but this time it was directly to Bakugo's right. Looking around, a green blip of light further up the wall caught the blonde's eyes. Narrowing his eyes, the hero rocketed himself up and reached out before feeling his fingers graze an object. Grabbing onto it, Bakugo ripped the object off the wall and brought it down with him as he landed. You find something? It's a shitty recorder. Bakugo growled while setting off a few weak explosions so he could get a better look at it. Deku was never here with us. He just set this up to make us think he was. The villains are trying to mess with us and force us to waste our time. Bakugo informed before blowing the recorder to pieces. Trying to trick us isn't very manly. Kirishima sked at the action before feeling a sudden wave of cold hit him. Hey, is it me, or is it getting colder? Kirishima asked as he shivered, rubbing his arms to heat himself up. It took a second, but Bakugo soon felt a shiver running up his spine as well from the cold, which was weird seeing as how everything felt fine seconds prior. He racked his brain for reasons why he could have gotten so cold suddenly, before his eyes widened in realization. Ponytail. The girl could make nearly anything from her stored fat, and Deku was the only one who knew that the cold was his weakness. The bastard must have had her create some sort of high-powered AC before blasting it through the building's ventilation system. It's fucking Deku and Ponytail. They're trying to fucking freeze us, so I can't use my quirk. Bakugo growled in annoyance. All Might. Yes, young Bakugo? Can't I just blow the building down and you give us the win? Wano, of course not. Young Midoriya and Yaoyorozu could suffer some serious injuries. Ah, come on. Deku would be fine, probably. Bakugo tried to argue but stopped upon not getting another response. God damn it. Come on, shitty hair, we gotta reach the top before time runs out. Bakugo barked out the order as he ran past the redhead, who did as he was told and followed close behind the blonde. The duo ran up the staircase before Bakugo ran into something, stopping him and causing him to fall back. Luckily, Kirishima was there to save him as he rubbed his injured nose. You okay, bro? Does it look like I'm okay? Bakugo growled as Kirishima helped him to his feet before he pushed the redhead away. Walking up a few steps with his hand reaching out, Bakugo felt his hand graze a wall made of stone. Pressing his palm against it, the angry blonde tried blasting it down, but only weak sparks were coming out. Fuck. Shitty hair, my quirk isn't working in this damn cold. Come here and bust the wall down. Kirishima nodded and complied, before hardening himself and charging through the wall with ease. The victory was short-lived, however, as they were met with yet another stone wall. I'm so fucking killing Deku once this is over. 13 minutes later. Is it wrong that I've enjoyed watching them struggle? Izuku asked his partner as they watched the hero team through the cameras he had set up. Right now, Kirishima was just a few walls away from reaching the room they were currently sitting inside. Well, we are the villain team, so enjoying the hero's struggle comes with the territory, I suppose. Momo shrugged as she sat down next to the bomb, trying to rest and regain some of her strength. She was tired after making all those walls and other objects her partner had requested, which used a lot of her stored fat. Now she just had enough for one more object, maybe more depending on the size. One more wall until they breach the room, and they only have a minute and a half left to go before time runs out, Izuku informed as he stretched, loosening himself up as he readied himself to fight. I'll try to take Kaken out as soon as I can since he's the bigger threat. No offense to Kirishima. If my calculations are correct, Kirishima's quirk won't last for much longer, and Kaken still can't use his sweat due to how cold we've made the building. At the risk of sounding cocky, I think we have this in the bag. After saying so, the door to the room was knocked off its hinges, and there stood the heroes in the doorway, panting and tired from their adventure through the trap-filled hallways of the buildings. The villains smiled to themselves upon seeing the heroes in their weakened states. So the heroes have finally decided to arrive. I'm glad. It was so awfully dreadful waiting for you to show. Izuku smirked at them, sly and slick, trying his best to capture the essence of a villain that enjoyed teasing and mocking their opponents. I'm going to kill you both. Bakugo growled, tired from traversing through the whole goddamn building without the use of his quirk. That's not a heroic thing to say, dude. Kirishima huffed beside him. Then please, come at me with everything you've got. Make me feel alive. Izuku challenged as green electricity danced across his form before he rushed across the gigantic room to the heroes. Kirishima acted first and jumped in front of his teammate, shielding the blonde from any attacks the villain might try. Time seemed to slow down as Izuku finally reached his target, a manic grin on his face as he twisted his body and slammed his shield into the right side of Kirishima's body. The red head was sent flying across the room and smashed into a wall, leaving the blonde to fend for himself. With a growl, Bakugo slammed his palm against the villain's chest and attempted to blow him away, but only sparks came out instead of a full-blown explosion. At most, it just charred and burned Izuku's suit a little. Is that all you've got? Izuku exclaimed as he latched onto the hero's arm, before turning his body and lifting the hero over his head. And here I thought you'd be a challenge, he shouted as he slammed the hero into the ground, knocking the wind out of him. Kirishima dug himself out of the wall with a groan and stumbled as he stood up. He watched as the villain continued to gloat over his teammate before switching his view to the bomb. The other villain was guarding it, but she seemed weakened and tired now. He could probably defeat her and touch the bomb to win. The problem was he didn't know what to do. While his heart was telling him to be a hero and go save his teammate, his brain told him to go after the bomb. So that's what he did. Pushing himself up, he made a beeline towards the bomb and didn't look back. Otherwise, his heart might have won the internal battle he was facing. He watched as Yaoyorozu's arm glowed pink before she pulled something out of it. He heard a bang and jumped over an incoming projectile that would have hit his legs. With how weak he was feeling, the redhead was sure a few more hits would be enough to fully stop his quirk. Midoriya, Kirishima's going for the bomb. Momo called out to her teammate, officially out of store fat from the last object she had made. The object was a bolus launcher, which shot out a bolus that was supposed to wrap around Kirishima's legs and trap him. At this moment, the fight was practically a 2 versus 1 against her team. Upon hearing the shout, Izuku turned and watched as the redhead ran as fast as his legs could carry him towards the fake bomb. Removing his foot from Bakugo's chest, he rushed after the hero. Did you really think I'd forget about you? Izuku questioned as he appeared in front of the hardened hero before delivering an uppercut to the redhead's jaw. The hero was sent flying and smashed into the ceiling before gravity took effect and brought him falling back down to earth into the floor. Haven't you given up yet? This is the end for you heroes. I refuse to give up. This is not the end. Kirishima struggled to stand back up, but with enough willpower finally made it back to his feet. No. This. Izuku stopped himself before grabbing the red head and positioning him towards the windows. Perfect, where was I? Oh yeah, Sparta. Izuku shouted as he raised his leg and kicked Kirishima square in the stomach. The red head was sent flying across the room once more and smashed not into, but through, the wall and into the outside world. Holy shit. What the fuck, young Midoriya? What? You never said I couldn't knock someone out of the building. There wasn't any rule against it. Yes, but, oh to hell with it, continue. Young Kirishima is out of the fight. It's now a 2 versus 1. Now, where did I put Recovery Girl's emergency number? All Might whispered the last bit to himself before cutting the comms. It's about to be a 1 versus 1, you shitty villains. Bakugo shouted from the other side of the room. He had gotten back up from Izuku's fight with Kirishima and was currently aiming at them with his gauntlet, his finger wrapped under the pin. This caused Izuku's eyes to widen, as he knew what that gauntlet was used for. The two had designed their hero costumes together, after all. Oh shit. Don't do it, young Bakugo. You'll kill him. It's not him I'm aiming at. The explosive blonde informed him with a manic grin as he refocused his aim on Yaoyorozu. Without a hint of worry or remorse, he pulled the pin. There was a simple click before a concentrated explosion of flames and heat exited the barrel and started to travel across the room towards the villain team. Acting faster than the blast traveled, Izuku jumped backwards towards the bomb and scooped Momo into his arms and dodged out of the way of the incoming attack. The blast shot past them, destroying the ground as it went, and smashed clean through the wall behind the villains. Taking advantage of his opponent being distracted with the attack, Bakugo turned around and aimed at the entrance, before pulling the pin on the other gauntlet and jumping into the air. The second blast exited through the barrel and sent the hero flying like a rocket towards the bomb. With desperate times come desperate measures. Izuku gently placed Momo down onto the ground before turning back to see the rocket that was his best friend blasting towards the fake bomb. Reaching his arm back, Izuku untwisted his body and threw his shield towards the blonde. The shield smashed into the blonde's side, changing the hero's trajectory and sending him flying towards the wall. Or, to be more specific, towards the hole that Izuku had kicked Kirishima through earlier. God damn it, Bakugo shouted as he flew outside, unable to stop himself from flying or the blast from continuing. Izuku and Momo both cringed at the sounds of windows and walls breaking. Young Midoriya, we need to talk about your obsession with knocking people out of tall buildings. All Might sighed into his earpiece. The time has run out, and the villain team has officially won. You two get back here while I go fetch young Kirishima and young Bakugo for Recovery Girl. 10 minutes later, observation room. Overall, it was an impressive fight, but the villain team reigned supreme thanks to the obstacles they had put in place for the heroes. I'm sure if they hadn't, things may have ended differently. In my opinion, you all did a fantastic job. All Might exclaimed with pride, causing the four to smile or smirk in happiness. But only one can be the MVP of the match. Can someone tell me who the MVP is? He asked the class and watched as Ida raised his arm before anyone else. Yes, young Ida. The title should go to Midoriya, sir, the speedster answered, causing the teen in question to do a double take. Me? Of course. You acted the part of being a villain. It was your ideas that slowed the hero team down, and you protected the bomb once they reached your location. On top of that, you also saved your teammate. And even though it wasn't exactly villainous, it was still a heroic act for which I commend you. Of course, Yaoyorozu played a huge part in your victory, but sadly, she couldn't do much once her stored fat had been used up. Kirishima did well as a hero, and Bakugo, well. The blue-haired teen trailed off, trying to find the right words. Go on, keep talking, Four Eyes, and see what happens. Bakugo growled from the back of the room, resting his aching body until All Might could take him and Kirishima to Recovery Girl. Well, threatening to kill isn't very heroic. Fuck you. That's enough, boys, All Might ordered. Young Ida is correct. While everyone dash, he said while casting a glance at each of the four students, even Bakugo. Did a good job. I've decided to give the MVP title to young Midoriya for the reasons that young Ida listed. Congratulations, young Midoriya. Now, if you'll excuse me, I must take young Kirishima and young Bakugo to Recovery Girl. Talk amongst yourselves until I get back. All Might exclaimed as he picked up the two boys in question, before speeding off and out of the room. Dude, it already has 10,000 views. Kaminari whispered to Zero, causing the tape teen to chuckle. What are you idiots whispering about? Jiro questioned. Nothing. Kaminari posted the video of Midoriya kicking Kirishima out of the building. Zero answered, opting to tell the truth. Dude, did you really just sell me out like that? She scares me, dude. You remember what she did to Mineta, right? During the fight, Mineta had attempted to cop a feel while Tsu wasn't paying attention. Jiro had caught on and stabbed the grape-haired boy with her jack before blasting her heartbeat, sending him smacking into one of the walls. Koda was tasked with taking him to Recovery Girl, who hasn't released the teen yet. Wait, you posted a video of me kicking him. How could I not, dude? It was funny as hell. You just hear, "This is Sparta," and the next thing you know, Kiri's getting yeeted out of the building. I was dying when I saw it. Kaminari couldn't help but snort at the memory. How'd you know about that movie anyway? I thought I was the only cultured one here. Well, my dad has lived and worked in America almost my whole life. Here and there, he'll send a care package full of movies, snacks, and other stuff he thinks I'll like. That movie happened to be one of them, Izuku told him with a shrug. This tidbit surprised most of them. None of them could imagine having one of their parents live in another country for most of their whole lives. Some of them couldn't imagine having a parent gone for more than a month. Must get lonely. Gasp, we should hang out sometime, Mina said, pouncing at the opportunity of hanging out with the green-haired boy. She had a feeling he would be fun to hang out with. I mean, I don't see why not. He shrugged in response. He didn't really get lonely per se, as he had his mom, Itsuka, Ibra, and Kaken to spend time with. On top of them, he now also had Uraraka and Ida, and of course May now that she was finally back. In the end, most of the class exchanged numbers in case they needed help with something or wanted to hang out. But judging by the mischievous grin Mina was giving him, Izuku was sure him agreeing with the idea would soon come back and bite him. Later that day, Midoriya apartment. Tell us everything. Bakugo ordered from the recliner he currently sat in, arms crossed against his chest as he leaned back against the fabric. Across from him sat Izuku and May on the couch, with the Pinkette insisting they sit next to one another. The successor to All Might didn't argue. It really was hard to believe that it took 11 years to be in this same room together once again. They had shared some amazing memories in this room, from scary movie nights to the weekends where they vowed to stay up all night long, even though they could never get past 1 in the morning. It almost felt like one of the cruel dreams they've all experienced, teasing and taunting them with something they wanted so badly, but feared they may never experience again. May fiddled with her hands. The poor girl had an aura of nervousness surrounding her ever since she first stepped foot inside. A look of fear flashed for a split second before she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, spherical device. Pressing the red button on top, it started flashing red as the bottom of the device popped out to form 2 tiny legs, kind of like a Bakugan. She placed it on the table, and after a few seconds, the flashing red light changed to a solid blue. The hell is that? Bakugo questioned. It's a device that nullifies every piece of recording technology in a 50-foot radius. It's better to play it safe than to be sorry. They could be trying to listen in, May informed the duo, confusing them. Who would want to listen to us, May? Izuku asked, causing the Pinkette to sigh. As you two know, the reason why we moved is because my parents were offered jobs in America by some government agency. She gulped before continuing her story. What you don't know is that they were tasked with creating weapons that could temporarily erase different types of quirks. The U.S. government feared war was coming and wanted these weapons to give them an advantage. This bit of information surprised the two boys. Hannah and Lee were forced to make weapons that erase people's quirks, like Aizawa, and they feared war was coming? Who did they fear was readying for war, and what was so important as to start another world war? Who did the U.S. fear was getting ready to fight, and why? What bastards hired Annie Hannah and Uncle Lee to make those weapons. And why did you think they might want to listen in on us? Bakugo questioned in rapid succession. One at a time, Kakin, you're going to overwhelm her. Izuku snapped at his friend, who ched in response and leaned back into his seat. Please, continue, May. I won't be able to answer most of those questions, she answered shyly, confusing them. Why not? The past 11 years are one big blur. I can remember certain things, like that our handler was a nice Caucasian guy with short brown hair, or how a tan woman with long brown hair would watch me while my parents worked. Everything else, like who the U.S. was getting ready to fight, why they were preparing for a fight, and the agency that hired my parents, I can't remember. The past 11 years are a blur, the blonde mumbled to himself. Those fucking bastards, he shouted, causing the two to jump in their seats. What are you talking about, Katsuki? May questioned. Isn't it obvious? Those bastards erased her memory to keep her from telling us the shit she and her parents went through. Of all the fucking rotten, evil ga. Bakugo roared, trying to find something to take his anger out on. Upon seeing an old phone book under the table, he snatched it up and slammed his palms against it, charring and crisping the book until the whole thing was blackened and falling to pieces. Kakin, calm down. We don't know if that's what happened. Although if it did, someone is going to pay. Izuku whispered the last bit to himself. She could have gotten hurt and developed amnesia or got hit by something that messed with her memory. We lack information here. We can't just go around accusing the U.S. government of doing shady stuff. And why not? You were a nerd and paid attention in history class. You know the shit they've done. You paid attention too, you nerd. We had the highest grades in that class. Fuck you, Bakugo shouted, causing the pinkette to giggle. Oh, how she missed this. Moving on. Izuku growled. Is there anything else you can remember? Anything at all? And not really. I remember the letter S showing up a lot, and maybe the agency's name started with an S. It's possible, but I'm not familiar with many U.S. agencies that start with the letter S. We'll be sure to look into it, Izuku said, with Kago nodding in agreement. Now, why do you think people are trying to spy on us? Ever since I got back to Japan, I've had the sense that someone has been watching me. Everywhere I go, different people watch and follow me and talk into phones whenever I do something like change sidewalks or walk down a different street. I might just be paranoid here, but it's really starting to freak me out. Well, we'll be sure to walk with you too and from school to be on the safe side. Going to the police might also be a good idea. Right, Kakin? We will literally be like the Secret Service for you. Anyone within a 1-mile radius is dying, especially the Great Midget. The offer is extended to Uncle and Auntie as well. Bakugo informed, serious as ever. Why about my dad? May trailed off, her voice growing quiet and soft as she clenched her hands. What about Uncle Lee, May? Izuku asked. Her silence did nothing to put him at ease. He died 8 years ago, she informed solemnly, voice cracking from the pain. Even after all these years, it was still painful to talk about. Damn it. I told myself I wouldn't break down. She thought as the dam finally broke, causing tears to start cascading down her cheeks. Oh, May, Izuku whispered, wrapping his arms around the girl before bringing her close to him. She returned the hug full force and squeezed tight as she sobbed into his chest. Now he understood why she wanted to sit next to him. After a few seconds, his eyes widened in realization. Is that why she made him promise her the thing? Bakugo was left shocked and saddened at the news. He and Izuku held numerous fond memories of the man, from letting the kids test out his new inventions, to him sneaking the children extra snacks, even when their mothers had said no more. Bakugo could still remember when Lee built adult-sized robots and let the three fight one another like Rock 'em Sock 'em robots. It took 20 minutes for the pinkette to calm down from her crying episode. After that, Izuku and Bakugo let her be for another 20 minutes, giving her a break from the questions and letting her get herself back together. Are you sure you're okay? Izuku questioned for what felt like the 20th time. Why, yeah, I think I will be, she answered truthfully, grateful for having such amazing friends. Let's talk about something else, shall we? How have you two been? Anything new I should know about? She asked, causing the two friends to eye each other. Well, 2 hours later. So, you two made friends with these two other girls, You each got attacked by a sludge villain. You each met All Might. And Izuku was handed the world's most powerful quirk by the #1 hero himself? And you and the two other girls have known about this for months now? Is that right? May asked as she and Bakugo made their way back to the Pinkette's home. As promised, the explosive blonde was walking her home, just in case people were really spying on and following her. After telling May everything, from Itsuka and Ibara, to Izuku being trained by different pros, to Izuku receiving one for all, the green-haired teen had assured her it was okay for her to be in on the secret. All Might did say Izuku could tell those he deemed trustworthy enough. Yup, things have gotten fucking weird ever since you left. But hey, we've stopped questioning shit and just started going with the flow. It's just so weird, seeing how much you two have changed. I mean, I'm the shortest one now. Now I can't tease you. We haven't changed that much. We're the same idiots you befriended all those years ago. You haven't changed that much either, especially since you still have that shitty crush on Deku still. Bakugo replied, causing May to splutter, her cheeks turning a fiery red. Don't even try to deny it. It's fucking obvious. Has been since we were kids when you'd call him your hero and other shit. Made me want to puke. He cut her off before she could deny, causing the inventor to sigh. You're right, but over the years I think the crush has gotten worse. I think I love him. Then fucking tell him and stop pussyfooting around it. With everything you've been through, you deserve some happiness for once. It doesn't matter. He doesn't feel the same way, May sighed, sadly, causing Bakugo to roll his eyes. Oh, come on. If you've seen the way he's been eyeing you all day when you haven't been watching, you'd fucking blush. Deku is crazy about you. Has been since we were young and thought cooties were an actual thing. I don't know. May, listen to me. You're one of the smartest people I know, so the fact that you can't tell he loves you back is blowing my mind. When you get home, study up on the signs someone likes you or whatever, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And you better do so sooner rather than later. You're not the only one crushing on the nerd. I'm not. Nope. And we both know Deku. He fucking grows on you, like a weed or some shit. Sooner or later more girls will start liking him, for whatever reason, and that means you'll have more competition for his shitty heart. Don't wait, May. Tell him soon. Bakugo advised, just wanting his shitty friends to see they liked each other. May nodded at his words and started thinking them over. Maybe he was right. Maybe she should read up on the signs people give when they like someone. And maybe she should confess? She still needed and wanted to think this situation through. But one thing was for sure. This wasn't going to be easy. The fuck is going on here? Bakugo asked his two companions upon their arrival at UA. Currently, the three were staring as a wave of reporters crowded in front of the golden gates of their school. The only thing stopping them from storming the school were Aizawa and Present Mike. Are they here to interview the students or something? May questioned, just as confused as her friends. Maybe they found out All Might is teaching and want to interview him. Izuku suggested with a shrug. An interview with the #1 pro hero turned UA teacher would nab them some big views. Shit, that means they're probably going to harass us about him. Can I blow them away? What is it with you and blowing people? Shut the fuck up, you shitty nerd. I'll fucking kill you. Bakugo threatened. May couldn't decide whether to giggle or sigh at her friend's antics. Truly, some things never change. Come on, we gotta go before we're late. The other two nodded in agreement before the trio began making their way through the rowdy crowd. Bakugo took charge in order to push and shove reporters out of the way, tossing out an occasional threat here and there to scare some of them into backing away. May was in the middle and Izuku took up the rear, making sure they didn't get separated in this mess. Midoriya, Bakugo, the problem duo's pink friend, Aizawa greeted as the three got close. Bakugo grunted, and Izuku and May waved back. Hurry up and get inside, kids. These vultures will try to squeeze every last drop of info out of you. Present Mike said as he rushed the kids inside. Please don't use squeeze and drop in the same sentence when talking to Midoriya. Midnight might hear you. The pro sighed tiredly, trying his best to keep Midnight on her best behavior when it came to the greenhead. The loud blonde snorted at the statement before the two started to walk away from the crowd of reporters. They didn't turn or flinch as a woman shouted for answers regarding All Might before there was a loud beeping noise. They could hear as the metal walls began popping up around the outer perimeter to keep unwanted guests out. 1A classroom. After dropping May off at the support department and saying goodbye, the duo made their way to their own classroom. There they discovered that everyone was discussing the reporters, the questions they had asked, and the answers they had given. Ida had given a long and boring speech which had put most of the reporters to sleep. Kaminari had memed and made Vine references, and others had just given a basic summary of what All Might was like. Muscly, cool, big, loud, and so on. Basically, the answers given were completely useless to the reporters. Good work on yesterday's combat training, you guys. I'm surprised I wasn't as disappointed as I thought I would be, Aizawa said as he entered the classroom. Midoriya, good job at analyzing your opponent's weaknesses and countering them effectively. However, if you decide to knock any more students out of a 5-story building or hire another 3 times, I will expel you. Why 3 more times, sir? Izuku asked. Because the same thing done 5 times is stale and boring. Now let's get down to business. Our first task, you all need to pick a class representative. Oh good, just normal school stuff. Some students thought with a sigh of relief. After the threats of expulsion and fighting their own classmates, it was a relief to finally do something normal. The announcement was followed by the screams and shouts of other members of 1A, each wanting the job for one reason or another. Some of those who raised their hands were obvious, like Momo or Ida, since they liked rules and order. Others were more surprising, like Mina and Kaminari, also known as the slackers by teachers like Aizawa. Silence everyone, please. Ida shouted above the others, effectively quieting everyone down. The class representative's duty is to lead others. It's not something just anyone can do. You must first have the trust of every student in the classroom. Therefore, the most logical way to fill this position is democratically. We will hold an election to choose our leader, Ida explained, wanting the vote to be held properly and professionally. Is this really the best idea? Kaminari asked, not sure the idea would actually work. We've only known each other for a few days. How do we know who we can trust? Sue questioned. Besides, everyone will just vote for themselves, Kirishima pointed out, although he himself wasn't going to do such a thing. Most people will, but that means whoever does receive multiple votes must truly be the most suitable for the job, Ida further elaborated. It's the best way, right? Ida asked Mr. Aizawa, who had already zipped himself back into his sleeping bag. Do what you want, just decide before my nap's over, he ordered before falling down and going to sleep. Thank you for your trust. After the exchange, pieces of paper were ripped and names were written down. It took the class about 10 minutes to vote, before Ito went around and collected all 20 votes. Taking a minute to separate the votes into different piles for each student, the class watched as a pained look crossed Ida's features once he was finished. The blue-haired speedster turned around and wrote something down onto the board. Class 1A, here are your choices for class representative and vice representative, Ida exclaimed before stepping aside to reveal who had won. Election poll results. Izuku Midoriya, 4 votes. Momo Yaoyorozu, 3 votes. I got 4 votes. Izuku asked out loud, surprised by the result of getting 1/5 of the total votes. He knew Kakin had probably voted for him, but where the hell did the other 3 come from? Mr. Aizawa, we voted on our class representative, Ida shouted as he gently shook the pro awake. 5 more minutes, Mom. I stayed up feeding alley cats last night. Aizawa mumbled in his sleep as he tried swatting Ida's hand away. Mr. Aizawa, you are no longer a child, and I'm not your mother. Hawaware. Aizawa mumbled again as he finally woke up. All right, we're in class. Thanks, Ida. Go sit down. The pro ordered before standing up as the speedster nodded at the command and went back to his desk. All right, the class rep is Midoriya and the deputy is Yaoyorozu. Congrats, you two. While I am saddened over not winning, I am happy that you were chosen, Midoriya. Let's represent the class as best as we can. Yaoyorozu gave him a soft smile, which he returned. To you as well, Yaoyorozu. Let's make 1A the best class there is. You know, this isn't so bad, Sue said, content with the results. Yeah, I can get behind Midoriya, Kirishima stated, happy to have someone so manly as class rep. Yeah, and Yaoyorozu was totally on top of it when it came to our training results. Kaminari backed up. Asterisk, gasp, asterisk, it's like they're mom and dad of the class now, he shouted, causing Minnie to snicker and the two in question to blush. What? They shouted in unison, blushing bright red at the suggestion. Yeah, you're now Yaoyorozu and me Midoriya. Do I get an allowance now? Can I be the favorite? What makes you think you'd be the favorite? You're definitely the middle child, Siro asked, snickering at the shocked look Kaminari gave him. What? I radiate youngest child energy, and you know it. I would rather die than let Deku be my dad. What about being your daddy? Mina teased, causing Izuku to blush brighter and Bakugo to squawk in shock and horror. I definitely wouldn't mind him being mine. You shut your goddamn trap before I throw you out this fucking window. Bakugo shouted, horrid at the idea of Deku being his father, or being Mina's daddy, or being with anyone other than Mei. If anything, he should be Mei's daddy. During this exchange, Izuku could feel his face growing redder and redder with every comment or mention of the word daddy. It was so embarrassing, being referred to as dad and daddy and stuff. Momo was blushing for other reasons, the image of older, grown-up versions of themselves holding a beautiful baby. The girl had been thinking about the boy, especially since yesterday after he had saved her. What she wouldn't give to be in his arms again. Lunchtime. Lunchtime, the time of day where everyone could relax and fill their stomachs with delicious food made by none other than the pro-hero lunch rush. Class 1A found themselves grabbing their food and places where they could sit. At one table sat Itsuka, Ibara, Uraraka, and Ida, who were waiting for their friends. What's taking Deku so long? Uraraka asked her blue-haired companion. I believe I overheard him and Bakugo saying they were going to grab someone before coming here. Perhaps they made a new friend, Ida suggested. Doubt it. Katz has a real, explosive personality. He doesn't really click with most people, Itsuka said with a sigh. She's correct. I must admit I wasn't originally fond of Katsuki when I first met him, but thanks to Izuku, he's grown on me. Ibara chipped in. Move the fuck out of our way, extra. We've got a VIP coming through. Bakugo shouted from somewhere in the lunchroom, causing the two girls to sigh. His inappropriate language, however, has not. Hey guys, thanks for saving us some seats, Izuku said as he, Bakugo, and a pink-haired girl neared the table. The green-haired teen sat in the chair beside Kendo. The pink-haired girl sat in the chair to Izuku's right, and Bakugo sat across from them in the booth next to Ida. No problem, Deku. Who's your new friend? Uraraka asked. This is actually an old friend from my and Kaken's past. Everyone, this is Mei Hatsum. Izuku introduced his old friend, who waved to the others at the table. It's nice to meet you all. Oh, so you're the girl Izuku couldn't stop talking about when we were younger, Itsuka said before giggling as the green-haired teen's face turned red. He wouldn't stop talking about me? Mei questioned, her cheeks flushing a light pink. It's true. Whenever something interesting would happen, he would say Mei would love this and whatnot. It's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Ibara Shiozaki of Class 1B. I'm Itsuka Kendo, also from Class 1B. Hi, I'm Ochako Uraraka from Class 1A, like Deku. Hello, I'm Tinya Ida, also from Class 1A. I hope that we can become good friends. I'm so happy Izuku has made so many nice friends. He wasn't exactly social when we were younger, so it's nice to know he's grown out of that phase. Mei giggled, causing Izuku to groan in annoyance. I was social when we were younger. Kaken just scared everyone off. That's true. These two here were the only ones not to run away, Bakugo stated while gesturing to Itsuka and Ibara. Yup, it's been 10 years and Katz hasn't been able to get rid of us yet. I wear it like a badge of honor. Itsuka chuckled, remembering how Bakugo would growl at her to scare her away when they were younger. Because of how he acted, Bakugo has been known as an angry Pomeranian ever since. Midoriya, a voice said from behind Izuku, causing everyone to turn their attention to who had called out the green-haired teen by name. When you have the chance, I would like you to come to my table. As deputy class representative, I've come up with some ideas that could benefit the class that I wish to speak to you about, Yorozu said. Of course. Give me a few minutes, and I'll be there. Izuku agreed to the request, causing the creation quirk user to nod before retreating back to her table, which was occupied by Jiro, Kaminari, Kirishima, and Ishido. I still can't believe I was voted to be class rep. I wonder who voted for me. I did, Ida said. Your courage and quick thinking under stress will make you a worthy leader, not to mention the strength and speed you've demonstrated during the battle trial. I voted for you too, Deko, Uraraka stated with a smile. But didn't you want to be class rep, Ida? I mean, you do look the part, especially with those glasses. That's not how we should be choosing people. Izuku's sweat dropped. I voted for you because I knew you wouldn't fuck up as much as everyone else. Don't prove me wrong, Bakugo growled at him. You're the class rep of 1A? Good job, Izuku. Mei cheered, happy for her friend. It seems like we have 2 class reps sitting at this table, Itsuka said with a smile. You're a class rep too? That's awesome. Izuku exclaimed before the 2 high-fived. Who's your deputy? Is it you, Ibra? He asked, causing the Vine quirk user to shake her head. Unfortunately, no. Our classmate Tetsu won the position with 3 votes, Ibra sighed. Wait, that leaves one last vote unaccounted for, Izuku realized. Who else voted for me? Before he could get his answer, sirens and bells began to ring throughout the school. A robotic feminine voice shouted, Warning, Level 3 security breach. Please evacuate the building in an orderly fashion. What followed was a horde of people running into the hallway in hopes of escaping the building. They ignored the robot's instructions and, of course, weren't in an orderly fashion. And much to Ida's horror, weren't in a single file line. What's a Level 3 security breach? Ida asked out loud. It means that someone managed to get past the school's barrier. This hasn't happened in my 3 years here. We should get moving, an upperclassman guy who had been sitting behind the group said before running off with his friends. The group of 7 were quick to follow and rushed out of the cafeteria doors as well. What they ended up running into was a sea of students taking up the whole hallway and got stuck after being sucked into the hundreds of kids. Stop pushing me, fuckhead. Ow, I'll fucking kill you. Bakugo shouted as he tried pushing kids away from him. You threatening to kill them isn't helping Kaken. They're already causing a massive panic as it is. Izuku said. Ow, watch the elbow. Who in the world could have trespassed on campus grounds? Ida exclaimed, confused on who could have done such a thing. It's the media. I can see them right out front. Uraraka, who was currently pressed against the window, informed her fellow classmates. Is that it? Why isn't the robot bitch coming online and telling everyone? Bakugo shouted in anger. At least it's not an actual villain attack. But we're the only ones who know the truth. How are we going to get everyone's attention? Ida shouted. Izuku's mind began to get into overdrive at that point, countless ideas swimming through his mind. Everyone was scared and panicking, which meant using Kaken's explosions would only worsen the situation. Mei had none of her gadgets to help, and Itsuka's and Ibra's quirks could potentially harm students. The closest to him were Ida and Uraraka. One could make things float, and the other was fast. Bingo. Ida, Uraraka. I have a plan, he exclaimed, drawing their attention. Uraraka, make Ida float above everyone. And Ida, use your quirk to speed over to and stand on top of the doorway. That way you can let everyone know the truth. With a nod, the 2 got to work. Uraraka touched Ida's arm, causing the speedster of 1A began floating above everyone else. Using his quirk, he shot forward at an amazing speed, and like Izuku had said, made it to the doorway. It was there that he began to shout the truth of what was going on, and how everyone needed to remain calm and prove that UA students were the best of the best. That, coupled with the fact that the police had literally just arrived, caused everyone to finally calm down and relax. Once everything had settled, the students were sent back to class. Using this free time, it allowed Izuku to think things over about this whole class rep thing. While he liked the idea of being it, he also found himself thinking of the good job and teamwork Ida and Uraraka had done. Hey Yaoyorozu, can I talk to you about an idea I had? Izuku questioned once he was close to his deputy. Of course, Midoriya. What is it? Class 1A. It's time, class rep. Let's begin. Momo informed Izuku. Right, of course. We need to figure out who the other class officers will be. But before we start, I would like to thank both Ida and Uraraka for helping stop the situation today during lunch, Izuku stated, surprising everyone, especially the two in question. Oh, come on, Deku, it was your idea. We just, brought it to life and actually made it happen. Izuku cut her off, giving her a soft smile. Who came up with the plan is irrelevant. What matters are the people who actually made the plan happen. You two did a good job today. Don't degrade yourselves or act like you guys didn't do anything. Uraraka blushed at the praise, while Ida and Kirishima began to tear up. Such manly praise. I love it. I humbly thank you, Midoriya. Is this love fest actually going anywhere and have a point? Or are you just wasting my and everyone else's valuable time? Aizawa questioned with an annoyed tone. He would have been intimidating if he wasn't leaning against the wall in his sleeping bag. There is, actually. Yaoyorozu and I discussed it before class started, and we've decided to name them the official officers of the class, Izuku said with a smile, surprising everyone. Deku/Midoriya? Hey, the fuck, Deku? Why didn't you pick me? 'Cause your quirk only would have caused more harm than good. Plus you threatened to kill someone when everyone was in a full state of panic. That and you. So you'd scare off anyone who we would meet and talk with. Bakugo went to shout something, only to close his mouth soon after. He leaned back in his chair and grumbled to himself, saying how much he hated this shitty nerd. If you would truly want me as an official class officer, I'd be foolish not to accept. Thank you, Midoriya. Ida exclaimed, giving his friend a bow. Yeah, thanks, Deku. We promise not to fail you. Sure, why not? Ida and Uraraka, you're the class officers now. Do whatever job Midoriya and Yaoyorozu give you. Don't screw up. Aizawa ordered. Good choices, you two. You should be saying that to Midoriya, sir. It was his idea, after all. I simply agreed with it. Yaoyorozu said, although it would have been nice to talk about it sooner, instead of mere moments before class. She said, causing Izuku to chuckle awkwardly and rub the back of his head bashfully. Yeah, sorry about that. It's just that we've hardly hung out outside of school, and I don't have your number, so I couldn't tell you about it. Both of which we could change if you want, he asked slyly, causing the young woman to blush a light pink and causing Kaminari and Mineta to have heart attacks. Yes, we should change that, shouldn't we? She agreed before creating a piece of paper and pen and writing down her number and handing it to the greenhead. Smooth, 100. Kaminari whispered to Zero. That worked. Mineta softly cried in despair. Today's training will be a little different. You'll have 3 instructors, me, All Might, and another faculty member will be keeping tabs on you. Aizawa informed the class, surprising them. This was the first time they would ever have 3 teachers to help with their training, which was a giant leap from the usual one. Some were excited at the idea of Aizawa and someone else helping with their training, while others were nervous and still wary of the erasing pro after their first day. Also, would having 3 teachers mean the training would be more difficult than usual? Sir, what kind of training is this? Zero asked the question that was on everyone's mind. As a result, Aizawa dug around in his pocket and pulled out a flashcard that had rescue in big blue letters on the back. Rescue training. You'll be dealing with natural disasters, shipwrecks, avalanches, fires, stuff like that, he said, which caused the nervousness of some to ease and the excitement in others to rise. Sounds like we're in for a big workout. Totally. Hero stuff. This is what separates the men from the boys. I'm shaking with excitement. Hopefully I can show off how good I am in the water, Ribbit. Guys, I'm not finished yet. What you wear in this exercise is up to you. I know you're excited about costumes, but keep in mind that you haven't gotten used to them yet. They might limit your abilities. This special training is at an off-campus facility, so we'll be taking a bus to get there, the pro advised as he pulled a remote from his pocket and pressed a button, causing shelves to start coming out of the walls. That's all, start getting ready. At the command, the students rose from their seats and walked over towards the wall, each grabbing their respective suitcase before heading out the door. Excitement was in the air, and no one was more excited than Izuku. Rescuing civilians, and more often than not heroes themselves, was a big part of being a pro, and no other pro was better known for it than All Might himself. If Izuku could go beyond and ace today's exercise, it would bring him one step closer to being just like his idol. After that, everyone went to the locker rooms to get changed before heading outside. Some of the class had formed small packs, like Kaminari, Shiro, Ashido, and Kirishima, while others opted to stay by themselves, like Tokoyami or Koda. Izuku was getting ready to walk to Uraraka and Yaoyorozu, but an ear-splitting whistle stopped him before he could move. Okay, everyone. I want everyone to form 2 lines based on your student numbers. Doing so will allow us to enter the bus more efficiently. Ida shouted as he stood next to the entrance to the bus, chopping his arm through the air to hurry everyone up. Izuku, Yaoyorozu, Ida, and Uraraka had created a group chat last night to discuss their roles as class officers. Ida would help with organization and time management, while Uraraka would do wellness checks on the class and make sure everyone was doing okay. An additional part of her job would be to report anything suspicious to UA faculty like Aizawa or All Might, like if she suspected abuse or self-harm of any kind. Upon entering the bus, Ida became horrified at seeing that it was more like a shuttle bus than a regular school bus. While there were seats in the back like a regular bus, the middle had sideways rows of seats that faced one another. Its open layout had ruined Ida's boarding strategy, as he put it. Most of the students had opted to sit in the back to avoid being bothered, while the more social butterflies of the class had opted for the middle. On the left side of the bus, going from left to right, sat Ashido, Uraraka, Izuku, and Jiro, and across from them, from right to left, sat Kirishima, Ida, Tsu, and Kaminari. After a few seconds, they could feel the bus start moving towards their destination. So much planning ruined. Ida cried as he sulked in his seat. You really need to chill, Ida, Ashido sighed, watching as the officer sulked to himself about his boarding strategy. If we're pointing out the obvious, then there's something I want to say, Tsu said, drawing everyone's attention. It's actually about you, Midoriya. She eyed him from across the bus, causing the greenet to tilt his head in confusion. About me? What is it, Tsu? That one power of yours, isn't it a lot like All Might's? She asked, causing both him and Bakugo to freeze. Izuku had known questions or statements regarding the similarity of his and All Might's power were going to pop up sooner or later, but he wasn't expecting it to be this soon. You really think so? I'm flattered. Being compared to All Might is a huge honor. He gave her a wide smile, opting to play the fanboy card instead of denying that they were similar. Doing so would only cause more people to point out how similar they were. In the meantime, he was hoping Kaken would have his back and say something, maybe mock Tsu for such a ludicrous idea. He could see from the corner of his eye that his blonde friend was about to say something, but someone else came to his rescue. Hold on, Tsu, you're forgetting something. All Might can level an entire city block with a single punch, while Midoriya can't. That makes a huge difference. Kirishima brought up, causing the greenet to sigh in relief. Still, I bet it's cool to have a simple augmenting type of quirk. You can do a lot of flashy stuff with it. He continued before holding out his arm and hardening it. My hardening's super strong and can destroy bad guys in a fight, but it doesn't look all that impressive. What's the big deal about having a flashy quirk or not? Izuku questioned, genuinely confused. Because you'll get noticed more by pros, man. You'll get more deals and offers to work under or with pros if you've got a flashy quirk, the redhead explained. If a pro only cares about the flashiness of a quirk, then they shouldn't be pros to begin with. Izuku scowled at the thought. It doesn't matter how flashy one's quirk is. What matters is how effective the quirk can be in a life or death situation. Your quirk may not be the flashiest, Kirishima, but it's definitely pro material and will definitely help save lives when out in the field. You really think so? I mean, it seems like becoming a pro will be easier with something flashy, but I appreciate the confidence, Midoriya. The redhead flashed a toothy grin, his confidence rising at the class rep's words. My naval laser has the perfect combination of panache and strength. Aoyama commented from a few seats back. But it's way lame if it gives you a stomach ache, sweetie. Ashido said, bringing the Frenchman back down to earth and causing him to pout. Well, if any of our classmates have pro quirks, it's Midoriya, Todoroki, and Bakugo, Kirishima said. Todoroki was asleep. Bakugo merely glared at him, and Izuku rubbed the back of his head bashfully. It's not just the 3 of us, Kirishima. You all have amazing quirks that'll make you into even more amazing pros. You'll see. Izuku praised further, causing every student to feel more confident in their quirks and abilities. True, but Bakugo's always angry, so he'll never be that popular. Sue spoke her mind, causing Bakugo's temper to flare. What did you say? I'll kick your ass, Kermit. Bakugo shouted, standing up from his seat. Bakugo, please sit down. Shut up, Four Eyes. You see? Prove my point. You know we basically just met you, so it's kinda telling that we all know your personality is flaming crap mixed with garbage, Kaminari pointed out. You'll regret the day you applied to this school, Pikachu. Bakugo screamed, holding the railing in front of him to hold him back and keep him from rushing the yellow-haired idiot. Izuku sighed as the two began arguing and insulting one another back and forth. There was no point in getting involved, because then Kakin would scream at him, he'd scream back, and one of them would say something embarrassing and expose the other. He decided to try and tune them out and listen to the others in the bus. Yaoyorozu was complaining to Koda about how disgusting the conversation was. Uraraka was laughing with Ishido and egging them on. Ida was yelling at them all to stop, and even with her earbuds plugged in, he could still hear the music coming from Jiro's phone. For him, it was easy to identify the song, the guitar riff at the beginning being a dead giveaway, but the drums that started playing shortly after sealed the deal. He started tapping his food and nodding his head along with the instruments. The secret side of me, I never let you see, he sang under his breath, not wanting to draw any attention to himself while also wanting to sing along. It was one of his favorite songs, after all. He was cut off soon after, however, by someone poking his arm. Turning his head, he was surprised to find Jiro staring at him curiously, as if studying him. She must have heard him and figured out he was listening in. Ah, sorry about that. Didn't mean to intrude and listen in. I just heard the song and well dash. You like Skillet? She cut him off, genuinely surprised she had found someone else who enjoyed a band she did. This was Japan after all, and J-pop dominated just about everything music-related. While the band was popular in places like America, it was basically a no-name here. Yeah, actually. When I was young, my dad moved to the US for his work and sent back a few of their albums. I've been hooked ever since, T told her. The song you're listening to, Monster, happens to be one of my favorites. She continued, eyeing him once this newfound piece of information escaped him. Soon her cheeks turned pink, and she looked away to avoid eye contact. Do you want to listen with me? She asked, her earjack wrapping around one of the earbuds as an offering. Am I getting a hint of tsundere? Another weakness. Izuku thought, his own cheeks turning pink. I'd love to. For the rest of the bus ride, the two sat in a comfortable silence, enjoying the company of the other and enjoying the music from Jiro's playlist, even though the world around them was on fire. Literally, Bakugo's explosions were causing the metal railing to slowly melt away and catch fire. Ito was panicking and looking for a fire extinguisher. Aizawa was banging his head against the window in hopes of knocking himself out, and some of the girls had noticed and were watching Izuku and Jiro. Some thought the image of the two sitting there listening to music was cute, while others had a more negative feeling. A pang of jealousy hit them, watching the two as they were in their own little world, each with a small smile on their face. Whether it was from the music or each other's company, none of them knew. What Mina knew as she took a picture, however, was that this would be great blackmail. Hey, we're here, Aizawa said, causing the two blondes to stop arguing and yelling. The bus turned right and began to slow down before coming to a complete stop. The doors opened, allowing Aizawa and the students to step out. They started walking towards a giant dome building. You know, there's a rumor going around that they're coming to Japan soon to play live, Jiro said, catching up to and walking next to Izuku. Really? That'd be sweet. I've never gotten the chance to see them play live. Same. Maybe I'll meet you there? If you decide to go, that is. Jiro trailed off, secretly hoping that he would. It felt nice to finally have someone that shared one of her interests. It was even better since he was easy on the eyes. I'll go if you go, he said with a smile. Midoriya, Jiro, stop talking and pay attention, Aizawa ordered, causing the two to blush in embarrassment for being called out. Hello everyone. I've been waiting for you. A person in an astronaut-like costume exclaimed happily while walking out through the front doors. Some stood amazed at who it was, while others looked on in confusion. It's the space hero, 13. The chivalrous pro who rescued a ton of people from disasters across the world. Izuku exclaimed, excited for said hero to be his teacher for today's training. 13 was one of his favorites, after all. Woohoo! 13's one of my most favorite heroes. Uraraka exclaimed, equally excited as her green-haired friend. I can't wait to show you what's inside. Please, follow me. She ordered nicely before walking towards and through the front doors with 1A in tow. It was definitely much bigger on the inside than it had appeared from the outside. The inside held multiple areas, each with a different disaster that would be used in their training. One had mountains, another was a red dome. One had broken and damaged buildings. Another was a gigantic pool-like area with a ship in its middle, and so on. The kids stared in amazement. Holy crap, it looks like some kind of amusement park. A shipwreck, a landslide, a fire, a windstorm, etc. I created this training facility to prepare you to deal with different types of disasters. I call it the Unforeseen Simulation Joint, but you can call it USJ. The space hero told the class, proud of her work and all of the time and effort she had put into creating the facility. Just like Universal Studios Japan. Many of 1A thought, hey, shouldn't All Might be here already? Aizawa asked while walking up to his colleague. Let me guess, he booked himself an interview instead. Actually, it's something else, 13 said while walking closer to and leaning towards Aizawa. Apparently, he did too much hero work on the way to school this morning and used all of his power. He's resting in the teacher's lounge. That man is the height of irresponsibility. Aizawa sighed, annoyed but knowing he couldn't do anything about it. All Might was All Might, after all. It was heroing first, everything else second for him. Well, we should be okay with just the two of us, he thought. Clock's ticking, we should get started. Excellent. But before we begin, let me just say one thing. Well, maybe two things. Maybe 3, or 4, or 5. 13 trailed off, forgetting what she had originally wanted to say until Aizawa tapped her helmet, stopping her from trailing off further. Sorry. Now please, listen carefully. 13 began to tell the class about her quirk, which was named Black Hole. This quirk allowed 13 to suck up and turn anything to dust, including human beings. While yes, she has saved dozens of people thanks to her power, it could just as easily be used to kill someone. She brought up that some of them had similar quirks that could potentially be helpful, but also dangerous and deadly. She informed the group that even with the smallest wrong move, it could change their power from helpful to deadly in a snap, even if they were attempting to do something virtuous like rescue someone. She thanked Aizawa for his fitness test, which had given everyone a solid idea of their quirk's potential. She also thanked All Might for his combat training, as the students had likely experienced how dangerous said powers could be when used against someone. She asked for everyone to carry those lessons to today's training, and informed them they would learn how to use their quirks to save someone's life. They wouldn't be using them to attack others or enemies, but to help. After all, that's what being a hero's about, ensuring the safety of others. Now finished, 13 thanked them for listening. The speech inspired just about the whole class and gave them plenty to think about. Some had never thought of their quirk being able to hurt someone, while others like Ishido and Kaminari had always known the risk, but they still wanted to try and help. Right, now that that's over dash, Aizawa was cut off as electricity began dancing across the lights on top of the building, causing many to look up and stare. The lights were soon turned off, and the fountain that sat in the middle of the disaster zones began to stop and turn back on rapidly. A purple portal began to open right in front of it, causing Aizawa's eyes to widen. Something was wrong, very, very wrong. A hand reached out of the portal, and a face with piercing red eyes followed it. What made the face even creepier was the fact that another hand was covering it. A severed hand. Stay together and don't move. 13. Protect the students. Aizawa commanded as he stood in front of the group, gesturing for his class to back away. Everyone grew confused, and it took Kirishima to point out what had made Aizawa act like this. What's that thing? He asked, watching the swirling vortex of purple and black. People began to slowly walk through, each one differing in appearance. For Izuku and Aizawa, it was easy to tell what type of quirks they had since some clearly had mutant types, while others it was harder to tell. Has the training started already? I thought we were rescuing people. Kaminari said, confused. This isn't training, Izuku said to him, his shield snapping into its full form. Stay back. Aizawa snapped, putting on his goggles. This is real. Those are villains, he exclaimed, shocking the class and causing most to worry, especially when a giant creature with pitch-black skin and an exposed brain walked through the portal. The only real heroes I see are 13 and Eraserhead. Perplexing, according to the schedule we retrieved, All Might should be here as well. The purple mist spoke, his body twisting to form a head with bright yellow eyes. So, you scumbags used the press as cover and sneaked onto campus, Aizawa deduced. Where is he? I went through all the trouble of bringing so many friends who were eager to meet him. They want All Might, the great symbol of peace. I can't believe he's not here. The man covered with hands sighed. Maybe if I kill a few kids he'll come out to play, he suggested. Aizawa's scarf flew and danced in the air as he prepared himself for the fight ahead. What? Real villains? No way. How could so many of them get into a UA facility this secure? Yeah, 13. Why aren't the alarms going? Good question. I'm not really sure, 13 said, surprising them. Is the entire campus under attack? Or is this their only target? Either way, if the alarm sensors aren't being triggered, one of them must have a quirk that's masking their presence here. They carefully chose this isolated facility as an entry point at a time a class was being taught. They're fools for trespassing here, but they thought this out. Whatever their plan is, they must have a concrete objective in mind. But what is it? Todoroki asked himself. The students were worried right now, seeing the wave of villains in front of them. They had successfully infiltrated the building, cut off their communications, and outnumbered them 10-1 before anyone could blink or comprehend what was happening. 13 Get them out of here and alert the main campus, Aizawa ordered. Actually, if they have the ability to block our sensors, then they might be jamming our regular communication too. Kaminari, try using your quirk to contact the school. Yes, sir. Are you sure you don't want some help? I don't doubt you have a plan or trick up your sleeve, but taking all of them on by yourself won't be easy, Izuku said, ready and willing to help if he allowed it. No, set an example and leave with the others, class rep. I'll buy you all enough time to escape, Aizawa stated. I'll leave it to you, 13. With a single jump, Aizawa flew over the large staircase, aiming himself for the villains below, as if he were a missile. Shooting squad, ready your aim. One of the villains, a man in a white tank top and metal helmet, ordered. A woman with long silver hair and a giant man in a green one-piece walked up behind him. Didn't our intel just say it was going to be 13 and All Might out here? Who's that? The woman questioned. Don't recognize him, but if he thinks he can take us down easy, he's dead. Let's shoot him down, the three shouted in unison, aiming and beginning to fire. The only problem was, nothing came out when they did so. My quirk. Where are my bullets? The two males shouted in surprise before Aizawa's scarf wrapped around all three of them. With a pull, the three were lifted into the air, and with a tug they were slammed into each other head first before falling to the ground, unconscious. Idiots. That's Eraserhead, a pro that can erase your quirk just by looking at you. One of the villains informed the rest. Cancellation, eh? Bet you can erase a quirk of a heteromorphic type like me, can you? One of the bigger brutes asked. He had 4 arms and rocky, light blue skin. He wore a black mask with yellow lines over his head. He started sending punches towards Aizawa, only for the man to duck and dodge every single one. Yeah, you're right, Aizawa answered, punching the villain square in the face and sending him flying back. He followed his attack up by tossing his scarf out and wrapping it around the guy's ankle. But a villain like you is only dangerous if you can reach me. He ducked under a punch from behind and did a 180, smashing his foot into the side of the villain's head and sending him flying back into 2 others. Tugging his scarf down, he sent the heteromorphic type slamming into them. Good thing I've taken measures to make sure that's never happened. Now, which one of you gutter punks is next? There he goes trying to intimidate us. He is strong, and since he's hiding behind those goggles, you can't tell whose quirk he's erasing. He's making it hard for us to work together or rely on each other's powers, the hand guy said to himself, watching as Eraserhead continued mowing down his minions. How annoying. The worst thing about dealing with pros is when they live up to all of their hype. In the time the hand guy spoke, Aizawa had managed to take down another 5 of his villains. The kids did as ordered and began running towards the front door in hopes of escaping, but were foiled when a purple and black portal began to open on the ground in front of them. The Vortex villain rose and stood between them, blocking their path. "There is no escape for you," he threatened the students. Damn it. I blinked for a second, and the guy who seems like the most trouble got away. Aizawa thought, mad at himself for such a foolish mistake. "It's a pleasure to meet you. We are the League of Villains. I know it's impolite, but we decided to invite ourselves into this haven of justice to say hello. And besides, isn't this a fitting place for All Might, the symbol of peace, to take his final breath?" he asked, revealing what their intention and goal was. To kill All Might. I believe he was supposed to be here today, and yet I see no sign of him. There must have been some sort of change in plans we could not have foreseen. Oh well, in the end I suppose it doesn't matter. I still have a role to play, he stated, his mist body growing in height. 13 had opened one of her fingers in hopes of turning the villain to dust in order to escape, but her eyes widened as 2 of the students decided to rush said villain instead. "Kaken, Kirishima, no," Izuku shouted, too late in stopping his friends from attacking the purple mist. He was watching his blonde friend for the longest time, knowing full well he was going to attack sooner or later. But the villain had mentioned killing All Might, and that reveal was enough to turn Izuku's attention away. In those few seconds, the two had run in to try and attack. Kirishima's hardened fist and Bakugo's explosion hit at once, causing smoke to fill the air. "Did you think we were going to stand around and let you tear this place to shreds?" Kirishima questioned with a toothy grin. "You live up to your school's reputation," the villain spoke, reforming himself around a metal piece as the dust settled. "But you should be more careful, children. Otherwise, someone might get hurt," he threatened. "You too, get out of the way right now," 13 shouted. "I'll scatter you across this facility to meet my comrades. And your deaths," he exclaimed, surrounding everyone in his purple mist. "Crap, what is this?" Kirishima shouted in surprise. Ida panicked and rushed out of the mist while grabbing those closest to him, which happened to be Uraraka and Sato. Shoji used his body and dupli arms in order to protect and cover Ishido and Siro. The rest were warped to other parts of the building. Jiro's head cracked into something as she came out of the portal, and the last thing she saw before losing consciousness was a black ponytail in neon green. "Before we get started, does anyone want to leave? It'll give you a chance to run away before the cops arrive." Izuku offered the group before him a chance to run away, one last chance at freedom before they could be locked away. The villains laughed at the offer and pitiful threat. "Last I checked, it's a 30 versus 2 since that purple-haired chick is knocked out. And you're the one threatening us." One of the villains, an African-American male with 2 swords and a black mask, asked in utter confusion. Either this kid had some massive stones, or he was an idiot. The villain was correct. The odds were in their favor since it was currently the 30 of them facing off against the 2 UA students. It would have been 3, but the one flat-chested girl hit her head upon entering the zone and was knocked unconscious. The black-haired girl was tending to her friend, and the green-haired boy was quick to stand up against them, putting himself between them and his classmates. "Look, I know you're not the brightest group of individuals seeing as how your villains dash," he mocked, causing some of them to growl in anger. "But this is the last chance I'm giving you before things get ugly. So take my advice and leave now while you still can. Or we can kill you, kidnap your little friends over there, and have some fun with them." Another villain, this one of Japanese descent with a whole arm sticking out of his forehead, said with a sickening smile, causing some of his group to chuckle in agreement. "The fuck did you just say?" Izuku asked with narrowed eyes, a red-hot, boiling anger suddenly running through him as green electricity started sparked at his fingertips. "I said dash." No, I heard what you said. It just shocks me you had the audacity to say such a thing when I'm still alive." Izuku growled in anger as he cracked his knuckles. "You've squandered your last chance. No more Mr. Nice Guy." In a flash of green, Izuku had sprinted across the zone, delivering an uppercut to the villain's jaw, breaking it, and sending him flying into the air. Before he could get away, Izuku clutched onto his ankle and slammed him into the ground before twisting his body and throwing him into a group of 4 other villains. He turned, ducking as a villain with lobster claws attempted to snap his head off. He raised his shield, driving the metal straight into the villain's nose, breaking it. Reeling back, he sent an 8% Detroit smash right into the villain's stomach, sending him flying through the crowd and into the side of the mountain. Arm sparkling green, he threw his shield, throwing and nailing a woman with black and silver hair in her chest before it bounced off of her, ricocheting and slamming into several others in the giant group. He could hear the buzzing of static coming from behind and sidestepped, grabbing a villain, whose hand was sparkling yellow with lightning similar to camaraderie, by his neck and wrist. As a villain with a skull mask rushed him, Izuku used the lightning villain as a weapon, pressing his electrified hand into the skull villain's mask and shocking him. As the skull villain fell down, Izuku kneed the lightning villain in the stomach before clasping his hands together and driving them down onto the villain's back. Izuku raised his hand, shield flying back and attaching itself to his arm, just in time too as he blocked the oncoming attack of a villain with swords for hands. Holding the villain off, Izuku raised his foot, slamming it into the foot of the villain and making his shout in pain, distracting him long enough for Izuku to slam his head into the sword villain's face, staggering him. Izuku slammed his shield into the villain's sword, snapping them in 2 before punching him in the gut, sending him flying back like the others. The sound of rocks rolling caught his attention and he turned, raising his shield as a villain made entirely of rocks slammed into him, rolled up and spinning like a ball. Using one hand to hold him back, Izuku drove a fist into the villain's side, breaking some of his rocky exterior, but he watched as the falling rocks froze in midair before attaching back to where they originally were. If the villain could reattach himself, that meant Izuku didn't have to feel bad from what he was about to do. Bringing his fist back and charging up to 12%. He punched the villain in his side again, cracking him before he broke under Izuku's fist, sending hundreds of pieces of rock flying into the air. Before he could throw his shield into another group of villains, 4 of them suddenly fell to the floor like sacks of bricks. He was surprised to see red feathered darts sticking out of their necks, and turned to see Yaoyorozu reloading some kind of gun she had created. She gave him a nod and a smile before continuing her shooting, nabbing another 4 villains for her kill count and bringing it up to a total of 7. 8-7, she said, causing Izuku to chuckle. What, is this a competition now? Izuku asked jokingly. If it is, I'm winning it, Yaoyorozu shot back with a smirk, causing Izuku to roll his eyes playfully. The greenet raised his foot and smashed it into the ground, causing it to shake as a crack traveled to a group of 2 villains. A giant hole opened at their feet and swallowed them whole. 9-8, Izuku challenged, one-upping his friend. Think you can do better? He asked, causing the raven-haired girl to smile before reloading. I know I can do better. We are so fucked, one villain whispered to another as a volley of darts and green lightning came flying their way. 5 minutes later. Of the original 30, 29 villains have fallen to Izuku's and Momo's hands, each forever scarred either physically or mentally for the rest of their lives. Izuku was currently facing down the final villain, an 8-foot-tall, 2,000-pound man with a rhinoceros quirk. The Rhino Man was putting all his weight and strength into his charge, slowly but surely pushing Izuku back inch by inch as he tried to impale the teen. The greenet growled as his grip tightened on the rhino's horn, his anger getting the better of him as his eyes, cornea and sclera of his eyes glowed a bright green as he shouted in rage, sending a sudden surge of strength traveling through his body. With every ounce of strength, he managed to lift the rhino off of his feet and raised him high into the air before slamming him back on the ground. Stomping on the man's snout, Izuku held tightly onto the horn and began to pull, causing the Rhino Man to scream in agony and pain. With a roar, Izuku pulled the horn from its socket, blood gushing out and traveling to the ground as the rhino went unconscious from the pain. Izuku huffed, the green light in his eyes dying down and becoming normal. Izuku stared down at the horn in his hands and made a disgusted noise. With a grunt, the greenet threw the horn down before walking away towards his classmates. How is she? Izuku asked his raven-haired companion. She opened her eyes and asked where we were while you were fighting that rhinoceros villain, but fell unconscious once more after doing so. Momo informed the class rep. With the training I've had, I think it's safe to assume she has a concussion. Fuck. We need to get her out of here, into the hospital, which is easier said than done, Izuku said as he chewed on his lip in thought. The mist guy seems to have a warp quirk and must have scattered 1A across the USJ. We need to regroup and figure out what's our next move, Izuku continued before scooping Jiro into his arms. Momo stood up and followed him as he began walking down one of the paths in their area. How do you think everyone else is faring? Momo questioned from his side, wary of their current path. With two giant walls on either side of them, this would be the perfect spot for an ambush. I think everyone's doing fine. It just depends where they landed. If Tsu was thrown into the water, she'll be more than capable of taking care of herself. But if Kaminari is thrown in there, well, it could be disastrous. Jiro moved and squirmed in his arms, head pressed against and nuzzling into his chest. It made him smile and his heart swell. The girl in his arms had a small smile on her face. If they weren't in a life or death situation, Izuku would have thought she was cute like this. Oh, who was he kidding? She was cute. The sounds of screaming broke Izuku from his thoughts, and the two started to run faster to get back to the others. They could see the giant staircase that Aizawa had jumped down earlier and a large body of water from the shipwreck disaster. This caused them some relief since it meant they were closer to their classmates, but the relief died down as quickly as they heard a loud snap. The giant black creature from before was on top of someone, the person's blood slowly pooling and surrounded the two. Izuku could see Tsu, Mineta, and Kaminari in the water near the shore, frozen in fear. The hand guy was slowly walking towards them. Can you carry Jiro for me? Izuku asked sharply, tone serious. I can, yes. Momo nodded, raising her arms and allowing Midoriya to place the petite girl in her arms. Get yourselves to safety and stay with the others. You're in charge while I'm gone. Gone? She questioned. Gone, he answered, electricity flowing through and around his body. Before she could protest, he was gone in a flash, wind and dust kicking up as he ran towards his friends. Blood and adrenaline pumped through him as he charged towards the enemies, and he now had a clear picture of what was happening. It was Mr. Aizawa who was being crushed by the creature, his arm twisted and broken, face being repeatedly smashed into the ground. Tsu was holding on to a crying Mineta and Kaminari, who was giving a thumbs up and had the dumbest expression Izuku had ever seen. She was frozen in fear, unable to move as the hand guy slowly reached out. He must have had a quirk that required contact with his hands, much like Uraraka. Winding his left arm back as it glowed green with one for all's energy, Izuku snapped his arm forward, letting go of his shield and watching it fly through the air at breakneck speeds. It flew past the creature and made contact with the hand guy, who was launched into the water as a result. The creature looked up to where its master once stood and didn't notice as Izuku drew closer. Pulling his right arm back, fists surging with green energy, Izuku let it launch forward and into the creature's back with a loud Detroit smash. The creature was off Aizawa in an instant, and Izuku watched as it flew through the air and landed in the water like the hand guy. Izuku continued running towards his friends as the mist villain screamed in surprise and worry. All of that had managed to snap Tsu out of her frozen state. Give me your hand, Izuku shouted when he was close enough, reaching down to the water. Tsu responded quickly, reaching out and grasping Izuku's hand before she and the other two were pulled out from the water. Midoriya? That was so cool. We're saved. Mineta began crying tears of joy. You won't be safe for long, Izuku informed her as his shield flew back to him and took its rightful place on his left arm. Get Mr. Aizawa and yourselves to safety. I'll protect you. But you dash. We have no time to argue. You four need to go before dash. Nomu. The ground shook as the monster made it back on land, its master, the hand guy, right behind it being helped by the vortex villain. The eyes of this Nomu snapped to Midoriya, and it rushed towards the boy before he could even blink. its fist pulled back, readying for a punch. Holy shit, it's fast, Midoriya thought, surprised. He stood in front of the three with his shield raised, hoping to stop the blow. The fist made contact with the shield, causing a high-speed wind to be whipped up and around the greenet. He could feel himself skid back a few feet from the force of the blow. This thing is a monster in every sense of the word. My power punch did nothing to hurt it, and it has incredible speed and strength. Definitely has shock absorption, so the best I can do is to continue punching it back. Grab Aizawa and get out of here. I'll hold this thing off so you can escape. The Nomu came back, reeling back its fists as it began its assault on Midoriya, pushing the shield user back a few inches with every rapid punch. Sue sidestepped the two as Mineta grabbed Kaminari and pulled him out of the way. The frog girl let out a ribbit of worry, but did as she was told. Running over to Aizawa, she and Mineta picked him up and began carrying him away. Mineta had also made a chain of his grapes before pressing one end at Sue and the other Kaminari, effectively hurting the blonde with them. Izuku ducked under one of the punches and reeled his fist back, striking the creature in its chest and sending it flying back about 10 feet. The greenet readied his shield for another volley of punches, but his eyes widened in surprise as ice formed at the creature's feet before growing and covering the Nomu whole, trapping it. What followed were explosions and screaming, and looking behind Nomu, Izuku could see that Kaken had the warp villain pinned, his metal plating trapped under the blonde's hand. Todoroki and Kirishima were close to him. You alright, nerd? Doing a lot better since you three are here. Izuku nodded, hurrying to join them. Thanks for the save, Todoroki. Hey, why the fuck are you thanking Icy Hot and not me? Perhaps it's because I actually managed to stop the villain that was giving him problems, Todoroki said calmly. I'll kill you. You four are so annoying, the hand guy hissed, scratching the ever-living hell out of his neck. My way of escaping is trapped, and the cannon fodder are all unconscious. This is beyond annoying. So, you're the boss villain, eh? Look, you've said it yourself that you're all alone with no means of escape. Why don't you give up and hand yourself in? There's no reason for this fighting to continue. Izuku tried reasoning with the villain, who scoffed at the suggestion. Shigaraki, I cannot move, sir. I'm sorry, Kurogiri apologized, wincing as Bakugo continued burning his plate. Oh, I'm not the boss villain in this little game. Shigaraki informed Midoriya with a chuckle, pointing towards Nomu. That is, Nomu, rescue Kurogiri. The ice cracked and shattered, and before anyone could blink, Nomu was free and charging straight for Bakugo before anyone knew what was happening. Todoroki summoned multiple walls of ice, but each were smashed through by the creature. Bakugo stared, wide-eyed as the creature came after him. He closed his eyes and waited for the hit, but it never came. Instead, the blonde was pushed away, and something else had taken the hit for him. Dude, you dodged that? That was awesome, Kirishima exclaimed in awe. Shut up, shitty hair, it wasn't me. Bakugo growled, confused. Who had pushed him? It wasn't Icy Hot, nor Shitty Hair, and where was shit? Deku. Bakugo shouted, watching the smoke rise from the wall that had been destroyed behind them. You'll pay for that, you fucking bastards. Bakugo threatened, palms sparking in rage over what had just happened to his friend. And it had happened because he wasn't fast enough to dodge on his own. Stand down, Kaken. A voice spoke, causing the three to turn around. Izuku was walking towards them, costume torn and dirty. He had a limp as he walked, but other than that, he seemed fine. You three, regroup with the others, he ordered, walking past and standing in front of them. I'll hold this thing off. Wano fucker. We ain't leaving you to fight this fucking abomination. Yeah, leaving someone behind is, like, the unmanliest thing you can do. This isn't up for discussion. Izuku snapped at them. You saw that thing smash through Todoroki's ice, and how fast it can move. It could have killed Kaken had I not stepped in. I'm the only one who can keep it at bay. That's why I'm going to hold it off so you all can escape. We're not leaving you. Bakugo yelled, grabbing onto Izuku's arm and making him turn to face him. I don't know what kind of self-righteous bullshit you're on right now, but we aren't abandoning you. What happens if you die? If it means you all can escape and get to safety, so be it, Izuku said firmly, tearing his arm away from his friend. It was silent after that, with Bakugo and Kirishima staring at him with wide, surprised eyes. Even Todoroki's usual blank expression had turned to one of surprise. Would he really give his life if it meant they could get to safety? My priority right now is making sure you're all safe. I promised someone to protect you all, and I intend to keep that promise, Izuku said. Bakugo growled, fingers twitching as he tried holding himself back from blowing his best friend up. As much as he hated to admit it, Deku was right. We aren't leaving here without you, Bakugo replied. But we will regroup with the other idiots. Dude. Shut it, shitty hair. The nerd's fucking right. We'd only get in the way. As much as I hate to agree with him, he is right. We should meet up with the others and check on them. I was getting to that. Icy Hot. Bakugo yelled, his glare switching between the two idiots. Icy Hot was fine with leaving, but Shitty Hair still seemed unsure. He'll be fine, Shitty Hair, have a little faith. I do. It's just that. I'll be fine, Izuku told him. Go on with them and check the others, protect them if I fail. It's probably the manliest thing you can do right now, Izuku said, using Kirishima's obsession with manliness against him. That seemed to do the trick as he watched the redhead's eyes light up at that. Finally, he nodded and agreed to leave with the others. He and Todoroki started to run to where the rest were at, and Bakugo would have as well if not for Izuku grabbing his arm. Kaken, if anything happens, dash. Which nothing will. Promise me you'll get them out of here, safe. I don't care what happens to me, just make sure they get out of here. I don't make shitty promises for shitty nerds. Bakugo hissed, trying to not let Deku's words get to him. It was hard to hear his friend accept death so easily for the sake of others. Don't fucking die and whatever. May will fucking kill me if you do. Izuku merely nodded and allowed Bakugo to follow the other two. With a sigh, he turned towards the villains. You really believe you can take on my Nomu? The thing built to kill All Might. We'll just have to see, won't we? Izuku asked. Yeah, I like your guts, kid. I'll like him better when they're strewn across the ground. Nomu. With one A. Where the fuck are the rest of the extras? Bakugo shouted as he finally made it to the top of the staircase. He could see round face, raccoon eyes, arms, icy hot, shitty hair, lips, soy sauce face, Kermit, great bitch, Pikachu, ponytail, and earlobes, but that was about it. 13 and Aizawa were also there, and both were greatly injured. Ito went for reinforcements, and the others are still spread around the USJ. Ponytail informed him as she did her best to patch up Aizawa. She looked behind Bakugo for a few seconds. Where's Midoriya? He's fighting that creature that hurt Aizawa. He's what? Great bitch shouted in surprise. Why would you leave him to fight that thing on his own? Raccoon Eyes questioned. It's not that simple, Mina, Shitty Hair said, trying to make her calm down. He told us to regroup with you all and to escape while he held that thing off. Which we're not doing. Bakugo exclaimed in anger. If it was up to me, I'd be down there with him. Not stuck up here with you extras. Deku, round face mumbled, worried. Your fucking boyfriend will be fine, so don't fucking worry. Bakugo said, trying to reassure himself much more than the others. Be boyfriend. I don't like leaving him either, but he gave us our best chance to get to safety. Icy Hot tossed in his 2 cents. I think we should do as he told us and leave. No. Bakugo, Momo, Uraraka, Kirishima, and Ishido shouted in unison. If we don't leave now, his sacrifice will be for nothing. He's not fucking dead. Besides, they would just come looking for us. It's better to stay here, so that way civilians won't get involved, Momo said. Thank you, Ponytail, Bakugo said before turning his body and staring at the spot near the water where they had left Izuku to fight. We just need to believe in the nerd. He'll be okay, he said, unable to tell if he had said that to reassure them or himself. With Izuku and Shigaraki. Focus on me, Izuku whispered to himself, leaping out of the way of Nomu's attack. He heard running from behind and turned, smacking Shigaraki on the side of the head with his shield before kicking him in the chest, sending the villain flying away before a black portal appeared and caught him, delivering him back to the fight. Izuku watched as black energy pooled at his feet and jumped out of the way before a portal could open beneath him. Is that all you've got? I thought I was dealing with actual villains, not little kids playing dress-up. Izuku had lost track of how long he'd been dealing with these villains. But what he didn't know is that for every second they wasted on him, it meant help was getting closer and closer. And he'd been able to study the movements of the three he was currently facing. While Nomu was fast, its movements were predictable, which gave him the advantage and allowed him to dodge and counter easily. Shigaraki's movements were loud and the villain himself was slow, giving Izuku plenty of time to increase the distance before attacking. Hirojiri only attacked when his comrades weren't close, which meant Izuku had to be on his guard. Since the mist villain had a metal plate, Izuku could have easily sent him flying and made this fight a bit more even, but with the constant attacks from the others, he never had a good opening. The Greenet raised his shield and blocked yet another onslaught of punches from the monster. Izuku counted them as they connected, and once the count hit 20, he knew it was time to strike, as Nomu tended to slow down for a split second between punches 20 and 21. Izuku sent 2 quick jabs towards the creature's stomach, sending it skidding back with each hit. Rushing in, Izuku jumped into the air and leaned backwards, delivering a solid kick to the Nomu's jaw. Landing on his feet, Izuku dashed forward and got another solid punch to his opponent's chest, sending the villain flying back in the air. "This kid's really pissing me off now," Shigaraki growled, using one hand to scratch his neck while the other wiped blood from his mouth. "If this continues any longer, the heroes will be upon us before we can escape," Hirojiri informed his master. "Shigaraki, I may have an idea that could end this." "Which is?" "This child has an iron will and refuses to back down in order to protect his friends. I say we even the playing field," Hirojiri answered, his eyes shifting to the top of the staircase. Following his phase, Shigaraki smirked, liking this idea already. "With Izuku." "Nomu, stop." Izuku could hear Shigaraki order, and watched as the monster suddenly froze like a statue, causing him to sigh in relief. "Have you finally decided to give up?" Izuku questioned. "We," a voice said, causing Izuku's eyes to widen in surprise and fear. "We? It couldn't be." "No, but we've come to bargain," Shigaraki informed the teen as he turned, loving the way the Greenet's eyes showed genuine fear and worry for the first time since their encounter. "Does this little guy belong to you?" the villain asked, his thumb and 2 fingers clenched tightly around Kaminari's throat. Hirojiri's idea had been simple: grab one of 1A as a hostage and force this shield hero, as his master put it, to surrender. Hirojiri had a list of those he thought were the weakest, and remembered the electric quirk user that had short-circuited himself. "Kaminari, let him go or I'll dash." "Nah," Shigaraki mocked, a 4th finger wrapping around the blonde's throat. "One more step and your little friend here gets dusted. Do as I say, and we'll teleport him back to your little class and leave him alone." Izuku ground his teeth, angry that he had allowed such a thing to happen. Hirojiri must have grabbed Kaminari while he was dealing with Nomu, and now they had leverage on him. Izuku sighed and nodded, not moving forward a single inch. "That's a good little hero. Now, drop that pesky shield of yours," Shigaraki ordered, filled with great glee as the teen before him listened to his commands like a puppy and tossed his shield to the ground. "Good dog. Nomu, break him." Before Izuku could blink, the monstrosity was behind him and latched onto his body like a dog with its chew toy. The Greenet could feel his arm being grabbed before it was snapped like a toothpick, causing him to cry out in pain as his arm was broken. The next thing the Greenet knew was that he was raised into the air by his broken arm and then smashed into the ground. A hand wrapped around his left leg and bent it forwards, and Izuku's left arm dug into the dirt in pain as his leg was broken too. The creature raised its right foot and stomped onto Izuku's back, and the Greenet bit his lip until it bled to stop him from screaming in pain. He could hear and feel as some of his ribs snapped in two, and could feel his back being broken. He could hear them, the screams of his name in panic and worry as blood pooled in his mouth and as his vision blurred. Even with his vision blurry, he watched as the blonde disappeared through a portal. "Shall we have the Nomu kill him, Shigaraki?" "No, let the child watch as we kill his classmates. Then we can kill him." "Why, you said you'd leave them alone." Izuku grunted through the pain and pressure as Nomu kept its giant foot on his back. "No, I said I'd leave that blonde idiot alone. It wouldn't be fun killing him in this condition. I'll let him live so he can deal with the guilt and shame of knowing all his friends are dead because he can't control such a simple quirk. Nomu, come. Izuku could feel the creature's weight get off of his body, and he watched as the three began walking towards the staircase, unable to do anything to stop them since his body was broken. Images flashed in his head of various ways the villains would hurt, or even kill, his friends, only angering him more. And no, get away, he called out, using his left arm and right leg to crawl forward at a snail's pace. His teeth gritted in anger and frustration as he could do nothing but watch them walk up the staircase, the images still flashing in his head. Kakin, Uraraka, and the others' possible deaths only got more and more gruesome the more thought he put into them. Get away from them. His breathing was erratic and uneven, a pure, boiling sensation of rage, anger, and hatred filling the pit of his stomach and traveling through his body. He glared, reaching out in a pathetic attempt to somehow stop or even capture and subdue Shigaraki and the others. He could feel the anger inside him, getting ready to burst, begging and pleading to be released. I said, get away from them, he shouted at the top of his lungs, before feeling something inside of him break, snap, like the lock to a cage of a violent animal or criminal breaking and setting them free. Before he could register what was happening, a violent pain shot through his body, and he screamed in pain as a swirling and dangerous black energy suddenly shot out from his left arm, whips of black energy whipping and winding around as it came to life, digging and tearing at the ground as several strands shot forward towards the villains. The three villains heard the shout and felt the ground began to shake violently. They turned, eyes widening in surprise as the tendrils shot towards them. Nomu did as it was built for, standing in front and raising its arms in a defensive position to protect its master. The whips shot into the beast, quickly wrapping around its limbs and neck and lifting it into the air. Shigaraki growled, grabbing onto one of the tendrils in an attempt to dust it, but he was surprised to find his power did nothing. Instead, the tendril came down, smacking into him and smashing him into the ground. The monster struggled, attempting to grab its bindings and try to rip them off. When that didn't work, it tried biting one, clawing at another, even flexing its giant arms, but escape was impossible. One tendril wrapped tighter around its neck before a familiar snap echoed throughout the building, causing many, even the villains and Izuku, to freeze as the Nomu stopped its struggling and futile attempts to escape. The tendrils disappeared back into Izuku's arm just as quickly as they appeared, dropping Nomu's dead body to the ground with a loud, haunting thud. Shigaraki stared, angry as he watched the lifeless corpse of his greatest power-up. He looked ahead, glaring as the child summoned his shield back to him. He cheated, the villain growled, itching, clawing at his neck in irritation and annoyance. He started to run over there towards the child, hellbent on finishing what Nomu had started. Izuku felt his vision start to fade, but still, he found the strength to push himself up, his good knee and hand supporting him. He stared ahead as well, glaring as the villain ran towards him. Shifting his shield to his good arm, the young hero prepared himself. He wasn't going down without a fight. Before the two titans could flash, there was an explosion at the front door, and a sudden gust of wind traveled through the students and past the two villains, shocking and surprising many of them. The Greenet could feel himself being lifted into a strong pair of arms, and he looked up towards his rescuer, a smile gracing his lips. Hey, All Might, he managed to stutter out weakly, his drive to stay awake and fight gone since All Might was here. Izuku closed his eyes and went limp, the pain finally taking a toll on his body as he drifted into unconsciousness. All Might, the students shouted in relief, no longer fearing for their lives since the #1 pro had arrived. Some were crying while others fell to their knees, the adrenaline of having to fight finally dying down. All Might gritted his teeth as he held his successor close, tightening his grip just enough to not hurt the boy while keeping him close and safe. He had seen 13 and Aizawa as he ran down towards Izuku, and could feel Izuku's condition up close now. His eyes were closed, cuts and bruises and tears littering his suit and body. His skin was more pale than usual, arm and leg broken, and he doubted it was from using one for all. They went through so much pain and suffering while I was resting. He thought bitterly and angrily, mad at himself for neglecting his teaching duties. His eyes drifted back, staring at the dead monstrosity behind him. His grip on his successor only tightened. He must have feared for his life and ended this monstrosity before it could do any more damage. In my carelessness, Midoriya committed an act many heroes pray they must never do. Leaning down, he grabbed Izuku's shield with his fingers before rushing past the two villains. He was careful to lay Izuku down with his shield by his side and watched as young Bakugo and young Uraraka rushed over to check up on him. The Greenet was still smiling, even though he was knocked out, which only made All Might hate himself more for not being here when they needed him. "Have no fear, students dash," he said, ripping off his tie and throwing it to the side. "I am here."